The Harrison family boardroom hadn't changed in 20 years. Same mahogany table, same leather chairs, same oil painting of my grandfather looking down at us with stern disapproval. I sat quietly at the far end, watching my father pace the room like he owned every molecule of air in it. Which technically, he did. Harrison Technologies needs fresh blood, he announced, hands clasped behind his back. New investment, new ideas, new leadership for the next generation. My older brother, Marcus, straightened his tie, already smirking. My younger sister, Sophia, tapped her manicured nails against her tablet, pretending to take notes. I kept still, my proposal folder unopened in front of me. That's why, Dad continued, I'm opening up shares in the company. Family only, of course. But, he paused for effect, you'll need to bring something to the table. We're talking serious investment. 7 figures minimum. Marcus raised his hand like we were still in grade school. I've already liquidated my tech stocks, Dad. I'm ready to put in $2 million. Excellent. Dad beamed. That's the kind of initiative we need. Sophia jumped in. James and I have discussed it. We can match that from our hedge fund returns. Perfect. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Real money, real commitment. Then all eyes turned to me. Alexandra Harrison, the middle child, the quiet one, the one who'd walked away from the family business 5 years ago to find herself. At least, that's how they described it. I cleared my throat. I'd like to present a proposal for modernizing our supply chain. And, Alex, Dad cut me off. We need actual capital, not ideas. How much can you invest? I met his gaze steadily. My current liquid assets are around $800,000. The room filled with poorly concealed snickers. Marcus actually rolled his eyes. Oh, sweetie. Sophia cooed with fake sympathy. This is a big kid's game. Maybe sit this one out? Dad's face hardened. We need someone with actual money to invest, Alexandra. Not whatever you've scraped together from your little consulting work. I didn't tell them about the other $50 million in assets I'd accumulated, or about the negotiations I'd been quietly conducting with Summit Industries, Harrison Tech's biggest competitor. I just nodded, gathered my things, and stood up. I understand. Thank you for the opportunity. Alex, Dad called as I reached the door. Maybe in a few years, when you've built up some real wealth. I closed the door quietly behind me. 2 weeks later, I sat in my real office, the top floor of a downtown high-rise, watching the morning news unfold on multiple screens. The headline scrolled across each one. BUREING, Summit Industries, NNOUNCE, NNEU Aluminiership. My phone started buzzing immediately. First Marcus, then Sophia, then a stream of notifications from family members and business contacts. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the live feed from Harrison Technologies' lobby security camera. Amazing what access you can get when you own a company's main competitor. Dad had just walked in, his usual coffee in hand. He stopped at the reception desk to check messages, glancing up at the lobby TV where the story was playing. I watched as my professional headshot filled the screen, followed by the announcement. Summit Industries proud to announce new CEO and majority shareholder, Alexandra Harrison. The coffee cup slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. His face went from red to red again as he fumbled for his phone. I let his call go to voicemail. Then I opened my laptop and began typing an email to Summit's board. Ladies and gentlemen, as discussed in our previous meetings, Phase 1 of our expansion plan begins today. The first target: Harrison Technologies' main semiconductor contract with Maxwell Corp. They won't see us coming. They never did. Best regards, Alexander Harrison, CEO, Summit Industries. I hit send and leaned back in my chair, looking out over the city skyline. In the distance, I could see Harrison Technologies' headquarters, the building I'd grown up dreaming of running someday. Now I had something better: the power to show them exactly what they'd dismissed. My phone buzzed again. A text from Marcus. "What the hell, Alex? Summit? Are you trying to destroy this family?" I typed back, "No, dear brother. I'm trying to show it what real money looks like." Then I turned off my phone and called my assistant. "Sarah, please inform Summit's PR team we're ready for Phase 2. And get me Maxwell Corp's CEO on the line." "Right away, Ms. Harrison." "Oh, and your father is in the lobby. He's quite insistent about seeing you." I smiled. "Tell security to escort him out. Remind him that as CEO of a competing company, he'll need to schedule any meetings through proper channels. And if he resists, take his picture. We'll need it for the restraining order I'll be filing this afternoon." I stood up, straightening my blazer, the same one I'd worn to that family meeting 2 weeks ago, the one they'd barely noticed because they were too busy counting their own money to see I had more than all of them combined. My office phone lit up. "Maxwell Corp CEO on line 1 for you, Ms. Harrison." I picked up the receiver, my voice calm and clear. "John, Alexander Harrison here. Let's talk about your future with Summit Industries. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's success they never saw coming." And I was just getting started. The next morning, Summit Industries stock opened 12% higher. Harrison Technologies dropped 8% in the first hour of trading. I watched both numbers from my private conference room while reviewing the Maxwell Corp contract, now exclusively Summit's, thanks to a late-night negotiation that cut Harrison Tech out of their biggest semiconductor deal. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Ms. Harrison, your sister Sophia is here. She doesn't have an appointment, but let her in." I closed my laptop. This should be interesting. Sophia burst through the door in designer heels and barely contained rage. "What are you doing, Alex? First Summit, now Maxwell? Are you trying to destroy everything Dad built?" I gestured to the chair across from me. "Please sit. You're making my security team nervous." "Screw your security team." But she sat anyway, smoothing her silk blouse with trembling hands. "Marcus is having a meltdown. Dad hasn't slept. Mom keeps crying about family loyalty." Fascinating. I pulled up a document on my tablet. "Speaking of loyalty, let's discuss Harrison Tech's new partnership with Vision Electronics, the one you and Marcus pushed through last quarter." She froze. "How do you know about that?" "I know everything, Sophia, including the fact that Vision is 3 months away from bankruptcy. Their financials are a house of cards, and you tied our family company to them because their CEO promised you and Marcus personal kickbacks." That's not. I have the offshore account records." I turned the tablet toward her. "Would you like to see them?" The color drained from her face. "You can't prove anything." "Actually, I can. Summit's forensic accounting team is very thorough. In fact, they're preparing a full report for the SEC right now. You wouldn't dare. We're family." "Family?" I leaned forward. "Was it family when you and Marcus convinced Dad I wasn't worth including in strategy meetings. When you mocked my little consulting work while I was building a billion-dollar portfolio. When you systematically pushed me out of every decision because you thought I wasn't smart enough, rich enough, or ruthless enough to play in your league. She stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward. What do you want? Simple. Harrison Tech cuts all ties with Vision Electronics immediately. You and Marcus resign from the board, citing personal reasons. In return, those financial records never see the light of day. That's blackmail. No, dear sister, that's business. I opened my laptop again. You have until 5 p.m. to decide. After that, the SEC gets an anonymous tip. Dad will never agree to this. Dad doesn't have a choice. Summit now owns 30% of Harrison Tech's supplier network. One phone call from me, and your production lines stop tomorrow. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Who are you? I'm the sister you should have been paying attention to. I pressed the intercom. Sarah, please show Ms. Harrison out. And send in my M and a team. We have a busy afternoon ahead. After Sophia left, I pulled up the family photo from last Christmas. The last time we'd all been together. Me in the background, quiet, watching, planning. Them in the front, loud, confident, completely unaware that I was about to change everything. My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. Whatever you're planning, stop. We can talk about this. I typed back. Like you talked about the Vision Electronics deal. Check your email. You have 4 hours. Then I opened the file marked Phase 3 and began reviewing the next step in Summit's expansion. By the time my M and a team arrived, I had already identified 3 more Harrison Tech contracts ready for acquisition. Because this wasn't just about revenge. This was about showing them exactly who they'd underestimated, and I was just getting warmed up. The afternoon news would announce Summit's latest acquisition, a small but crucial chip manufacturer that supplied 40% of Harrison Tech's components. Dad would see it during his usual 3 p.m. coffee break, the same coffee he dropped this morning. I smiled, imagining his reaction. Sometimes the quiet ones aren't quiet because they have nothing to say. They're quiet because they're waiting for the perfect moment to speak. And my moment? It was just beginning. At exactly 4:58 p.m., 2 minutes before my deadline, the resignations hit my inbox. First Marcus, then Sophia, both citing personal reasons for leaving Harrison Technologies board. I forwarded them to my legal team without comment. Then came the call I'd been waiting for. Alexandra. Dad's voice was rough, tired. We need to talk. My office. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Bring Mom. I hung up before he could respond. That night, I sat in my penthouse reviewing old family videos. Christmas mornings where my siblings' gifts dominated the frame while I opened books about business strategy. Board meetings where my raised hand was ignored. The day I graduated top of my class from business school, and they all left early because Marcus had a more important client dinner. I'd recorded everything, not for nostalgia, but for motivation. At 8:55 a.m. the next morning, they arrived. Mom looked like she'd aged 10 years overnight. Dad had traded his usual commanding stride for something closer to a shuffle. They sat across from me, 2 people who'd once seemed larger than life, now looking small against the backdrop of floor-to-ceiling windows. The Vision Electronics deal is dead, Dad said without preamble. And your siblings have resigned. Yes, I know. I pulled up a presentation on the wall screen. Now let's discuss Harrison Technologies' future. Our future? Mom's voice cracked. Alex, you're destroying us. No, Mom. I'm saving you from them. I clicked to the first slide. Detailed documentation of Marcus and Sophia's kickback scheme. They were bleeding the company dry. Vision Electronics was just the start. I have evidence of at least 6 other deals where they took personal payments to push through contracts that hurt Harrison Tech. Dad's face went ashen. That's impossible. We raised them better. Did you? You raised them to believe money and power were everything. That the only way to win was to step on others. The only difference is, they turned those lessons against you too. I clicked through more slides, offshore accounts, secret meetings, forged documents. With each revelation, my parents seemed to shrink further into their chairs. Why show us this? Mom whispered. Why not just let the SEC handle it? Because despite everything, Harrison Technologies is still Grandpa's legacy. And unlike my dear siblings, I actually care about that. Dad looked up sharply. What are you suggesting? A merger. I pulled up the final slide. Summit Industries and Harrison Technologies combine forces. Your technology, my market position. We could dominate the industry for the next 50 years. You want to take over our company? No, Dad. I want to save it. But this time, on my terms. I laid out the details. A fair stock exchange, guaranteed positions for loyal employees, and a new board structure that would protect both companies' interests. And if we refuse, Dad's voice was quiet. Then tomorrow morning, these documents go public. Harrison Tech's stock crashes. The SEC launches an investigation, and everything Grandpa built ends in scandal. Mom started crying softly. Dad just stared at his hands. You have until noon to decide. I stood up. Oh, and one more thing. I want the painting. What painting? Mom looked confused. Grandpa's portrait from the boardroom. The one that watched me being ignored for 20 years. I think it's time he had a new view. At 11:58 a.m., they signed the merger agreement. By 1 p.m., the news had hit every major financial network. Historic MERGER, Summit, and Harrison Technologies, JOIN, FORC. That evening, as maintenance crews hung Grandpa's portrait in my office, I received 3 text messages. From Sophia, I hope you're happy. You've ruined everything. From Marcus, this isn't over, Alex. From Mom, we never saw you. I'm so sorry. I responded only to Mom. It's not about being seen anymore. It's about being heard. And now everyone's listening. 1 month later, I stood in the new combined boardroom of Summit Harrison Technologies. The company's stock had risen 40% since the merger. Our market share had doubled. And my siblings? Last I heard, they were trying to start a venture capital firm. Without access to Harrison Tech's resources or connections, they weren't having much success. My assistant knocked on the door. Ms. Harrison? The board is ready for your first meeting as CEO. I straightened my jacket and picked up my presentation folder, the same one I tried to show them at that family meeting that felt like a lifetime ago. Oh, and your father is here. He says he'd like to sit in, if you'll allow it. I thought about it. Put him in the back. He can watch. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just proving them wrong, it's proving yourself right. And as I walked into that boardroom, past Grandpa's portrait now hanging behind my chair, I knew I'd done exactly that. Good morning, everyone. I began, my voice clear and confident. Let's talk about the future. Not just my future, or the company's future, but the future I'd built while they weren't watching. Because in the end, they were right about one thing. Business is about money and power. They just never expected me to have more of both than all of them combined. And as I started my presentation, I caught Dad's eye in the back of the room. For the first time in my life, he wasn't looking at me with disappointment or dismissal. He was looking at me with respect. Too little, too late. But exactly what I'd been working for all along.
The pregnancy test showed 2 pink lines, but they weren't for me. My name is Sylvia, and I'm about to tell you the story of how I gave my sister everything and lost myself in the process. But let me start at the beginning, when I still believed family meant something. "Sylvia, you're our miracle worker," Valerie said, her voice thick with tears as she clutched the positive test. "I can't believe you're actually doing this for us." I was sitting in their pristine living room, surrounded by cream-coloured furniture that probably cost more than my yearly rent. Weston paced behind the couch, his hands shaking as he stared at the test. "This is really happening," he whispered. "We're going to have a baby." The way he said it made my stomach twist, but I pushed the feeling down. This was what I'd signed up for. After 3 miscarriages and 2 failed IVF attempts, my sister had looked at me with such desperate hope when she asked if I'd consider being their surrogate. "You're the only one who can help us," she'd said. "Please, Sylvia, you're our last chance." How could I say no? Valerie had always been the golden child. Beautiful, successful, married to a man who worshipped her. She had everything except the one thing she wanted most. And me? I was 32, single, working a dead-end project management job, living in a studio apartment with a broken air conditioner. If I could give her this one thing, maybe I'd finally matter. "We'll take such good care of you," Mom said, appearing in the doorway with a tray of tea. She'd driven over the moment Valerie called with the news. "You're doing something so selfless, honey. So beautiful." I'd never heard her call me beautiful before. The next 9 months were like living in a dream. Suddenly, I was the centre of attention. Valerie texted me every morning asking how I felt. Weston insisted on driving me to every appointment. Mum called daily with advice about prenatal vitamins and what to eat. "You're glowing," Dad said during one of our weekly family dinners. "Pregnancy suits you." Even my extended family got involved. Cousin Zoe threw me a baby shower. Well, technically it was for Valerie, but I got to sit in the place of honour and open gifts. Aunts and uncles who usually forgot my birthday suddenly remembered I existed. "You're an angel," Aunt Patricia told me, squeezing my hand. "Not everyone would do what you're doing." For the first time in my life, I felt important, needed, like I belonged somewhere. The labour started at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. I called Valerie first, then the hospital, then somehow found myself in the back of Weston's car, gripping the door handle as contractions tore through me. "You're doing amazing," Valerie kept saying from the front seat. "Just breathe. We're almost there." 18 hours later, I heard the most beautiful sound in the world, a baby's first cry. My baby's first cry. "It's a boy," the doctor announced. "A healthy baby boy." I was exhausted, shaking, covered in sweat, but I'd never felt more accomplished. I'd done it. I'd given them their miracle. "Can I hold him?" I asked, reaching out with trembling arms. The nurse looked at Valerie, who was already standing beside the bed, with her arms extended. "He needs to go to his mother first," the nurse said gently, placing the baby in Valerie's arms instead of mine. I watched my sister cradle the child I just delivered, her face radiant with joy. Weston wrapped his arms around both of them, tears streaming down his cheeks. "He's perfect," Valerie whispered. "Look at him, Weston. He's absolutely perfect." They were so absorbed in their moment that they didn't notice me lying there, empty and forgotten. The nurse was busy cleaning up, The doctor had moved on to the next patient, and my family was complete without me. "What are you going to name him?" I asked quietly. "James," Weston said without looking at me. "James Weston Wallace." No mention of me. No acknowledgement that I'd just spent 9 months growing their son, or that I'd just endured nearly a day of labour to bring him into the world. "I'd like to hold him," I said again, louder this time. Valerie finally looked at me, and something in her expression had changed. The warmth was gone, replaced by something cold and distant. "You should rest," she said. "You've done enough." The nurse handed me a discharge packet and a cheque. "Your sister asked me to give you this," she said quietly. I stared at the piece of paper in my hands. Payment for services rendered. Like I was a contractor who just finished a job. "You can go home now," Mum said, appearing at my bedside. "Stop acting selfish and let them have their moment." I went home alone that night, my body empty, my heart shattered, holding an uncashed cheque that felt like 30 pieces of silver. The silence started immediately. I called Valerie the day after I got home from the hospital. My body ached, my breasts were swollen with milk that had nowhere to go, and I just wanted to know how James was doing. "Hi, you've reached Valerie. I can't come to the phone right now, but leave a message and I'll get back to you." I left 3 messages that first day, then 5 the next. By the end of the week, I'd stopped counting. Maybe she's just overwhelmed, I told myself, dialing Mum's number instead. "Sylvia, honey, you need to give them space," Mum said before I could even ask about the baby. "They're adjusting to being new parents. This is their time." "I just want to know how he's doing. I carried him for 9 months." "And now your job is done. You should be proud of what you accomplished and move on. Move on. Like James was a project I'd completed, not a child I'd grown inside my body." I tried Dad next. "Your mother's right," he said. "You did a wonderful thing, but now you need to let them be a family." "What about me? Am I not family?" The pause stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. "Of course you are, sweetheart. But this is different. You understand." I didn't understand. I didn't understand any of it. 2 weeks later, I was scrolling through Facebook when I saw it. Valerie's first post about James. The photo showed her in a hospital gown, glowing and radiant, holding a tiny bundle. The caption read, "After years of heartbreak and loss, our miracle finally arrived. James Weston Wallace, born at 9:47 p.m, 7 LBS 3 Oz. We are so grateful for this blessing." The comments poured in immediately. "Congratulations! He's beautiful! So happy for you both. You deserve this joy. What a perfect little angel. You must be over the moon. After everything you've been through, this is such wonderful news." Not one mention of me. Not one acknowledgement that I'd been the one in that hospital bed, the one who delivered their miracle. In Valerie's version of the story, James had simply appeared, a gift from the universe to reward her suffering. I screenshot the post and texted it to her. "Really? Not even a thank you?" The response came back within minutes. "Please don't contact me again. We've moved on and you should too." I stared at the message until my eyes burned. Then I called her. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." She'd blocked me. My own sister had blocked me. I tried calling from my work phone the next day. "Sylvia," Valerie's voice was sharp, "I told you not to contact me. I just want to see him, just once. I won't ask for anything else. That's not happening. We have a lawyer now, and he says any contact from you could be considered harassment." "Harassment? I'm his—" "You're nothing to him. You were an incubator, and now that job is finished. If you keep calling, we'll get a restraining order." The line went dead. I sat in my cubicle, shaking, as my co-workers went about their normal Tuesday morning routines. Someone was microwaving fish in the break room. The printer was making that grinding noise again. Everything was exactly the same as it had been before, except I felt like I was dying inside. "You okay?" my manager Kevin asked, stopping by my desk. "You've seemed off lately." I'd been making mistakes, missing deadlines, forgetting meetings, staring at my computer screen for hours without accomplishing anything. The pregnancy had already put me behind at work, and now I couldn't focus on anything. "I'm fine," I lied. But I wasn't fine. I was falling apart. The Facebook posts continued. James's first smile. James sleeping peacefully. James in a tiny baseball outfit. Each photo was like a knife twisting in my chest. The comments kept coming too. Hundreds of people celebrating Valerie's joy while I sat alone in my apartment, pumping and dumping breast milk because my body didn't understand that my baby was gone. I tried reaching out to other family members. Cousin Zoe was sympathetic but cautious. "I'm sorry this is so hard," she said when I called her crying. "But maybe they're right. Maybe some distance would be good for everyone." Distance? I gave birth to him 3 weeks ago. "I know, but it's complicated, Sylvia. You knew this was the arrangement." Even she didn't understand. Nobody understood. The breaking point came when I saw Valerie's post about James's 1-month milestone. She was holding him in the same rocking chair where she used to sit when we were kids, the one in Mum's living room. The caption read, "1 month of pure joy. Every sleepless night, every diaper change, every precious moment. It's all been worth the wait. Being his mommy is the greatest gift I've ever received." I drove to Mum's house without thinking, my hand shaking on the steering wheel. I needed to see him. I needed to hold the baby I'd carried for 9 months just once. Mum answered the door with James in her arms. "Sylvia, what are you doing here?" "I want to see him." "You can't just show up like this. Valerie and Weston are inside." "Good. We need to talk." "No." Mum stepped outside and closed the door behind her. "You need to leave. Now. He's not yours. He was never yours. You were helping your sister, and now it's time to move on with your life." I reached for James, and Mum actually stepped back, clutching him tighter. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," she said. "Go home, Sylvia. Find something else to focus on." I drove home in a daze, my phone buzzing with angry texts from Valerie about ambushing them and violating boundaries. By the time I got to my apartment, there was already a voicemail from their lawyer. That night, I lost my job. Kevin called to tell me they were restructuring my position. "It's nothing personal," he said, "but your performance lately." I hung up and sat in the dark, holding the uncashed check they'd given me at the hospital. Everything I'd sacrificed, everything I'd given up, and this was what I had to show for it. A piece of paper and a family that wanted me to disappear. The letter arrived the next morning, delivered by certified mail. The return address showed a law firm I'd never heard of. Underwood and Associates. I tore it open with shaking hands. Urgent, regarding the estate of Josephine Dawson. The law office was nothing like I expected. Instead of mahogany and leather, Maggie Underwood's office had white walls, modern furniture, and a view of the city that probably cost more than my yearly salary. Sylvia Porter? The woman behind the desk was younger than I'd imagined, maybe mid-40s, with sharp eyes and perfectly styled blonde hair. "I'm Maggie Underwood. Please, sit down." I clutched the letter in my sweaty palm. "I don't understand why I'm here. My godmother died 6 months ago. I went to the funeral." "Yes, but her will wasn't read until last week. There were complications with the estate." Maggie opened a thick folder. "Josephine left very specific instructions about her inheritance. $10 million to be exact." The number hit me like a physical blow. 10 million? She was quite wealthy. made some smart investments in tech companies back in the 90s. Maggie pulled out a document. But there's a condition, a very specific condition. My hands were shaking. What kind of condition? The inheritance can only be claimed by you, but only if your biological child is legally recognized as yours and physically present during the claim process. I stared at her. My biological child? Josephine knew about the surrogacy arrangement. She also knew about your family's treatment of you afterward. Maggie leaned forward. She was quite upset about it, actually. Called me 2 weeks before she died, ranting about how they'd thrown you away like garbage. She knew. Josephine knew everything. She also knew that your sister and her husband are in serious financial trouble. The room felt like it was spinning. What do you mean? Maggie pulled out another folder, this one even thicker. Weston's construction company is hemorrhaging money. 3 major projects fell through last year. They're behind on their mortgage, maxed out their credit cards, and facing bankruptcy within 6 months. How do you know all this? I'm very good at my job. Maggie's smile was sharp. The interesting part is that Valerie has already tried to claim Josephine's inheritance. Twice. What? She showed up here 3 weeks ago with forged documents claiming James was her biological child. When that didn't work, she came back with your parents, trying to argue that since you were just a surrogate, the inheritance should go to the real mother. I felt sick. And I told her the same thing I'm telling you. The will is very clear. The biological mother must be legally recognized and the child must be present. No exceptions. But I signed papers, giving up my rights. Surrogacy agreements can be challenged, especially when there's evidence of coercion or fraud. Maggie opened another file. Tell me, did anyone pressure you to sign those papers? I thought about Mom telling me to stop being selfish, about Valerie's lawyer threatening harassment charges, about being blocked and erased from James's life. Yes, good, because I've been researching your family's behaviour since the birth. The social media posts, the complete erasure of your role, the threats, it all builds a case for emotional coercion. You want me to fight them? I want you to get what's rightfully yours, both the money and your son. They'll destroy me. They have lawyers, money. Had money? Past tense? Maggie slid a bank statement across the desk. This is Weston's business account as of yesterday. Negative $43,000. Their house is in foreclosure proceedings. Valerie's been selling jewellery to pay for groceries. I stared at the numbers. They're broke? Completely. Which is why they need that inheritance so desperately, and why they'll fight dirty to keep you from claiming it. What are you saying? I'm saying your family has painted themselves into a corner. They can't claim the money without acknowledging you as James's biological mother. But if they do that, they lose their narrative about being his real parents. The pieces were clicking together. So they're stuck. Unless they can make you disappear permanently, which, judging by their behaviour so far, seems to be their strategy. I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Power. What would I have to do? File for custody, challenge the surrogacy agreement, force them to acknowledge your parental rights in court. Maggie leaned back. It won't be easy. They'll fight back hard. They'll try to paint you as unstable, greedy, a threat to James's well-being. And if I win, you get your son back, and $10 million. And if I lose, you're exactly where you are now, alone, broke, and forgotten. I looked out the window at the city below. Somewhere out there, James was taking his afternoon nap. Probably in the nursery Valerie had decorated with money she didn't have. Somewhere out there, my family was living a lie that depended on my silence. There's something else? Maggie said quietly. Josephine left you a letter. She wanted you to read it before making your decision. She handed me an envelope with my name written in Josephine's familiar handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "My dearest Sylvia," it began, "if you're reading this, then they've done exactly what I feared they would do. They've used you and thrown you away, just like they always have. You were never the problem, sweetheart. You were never too much or not enough. You were just surrounded by people who couldn't see your worth. Don't let them steal your son the way they stole your childhood. Fight back. You're stronger than you know. All, my love, Aunt Josie." I folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. "How far are you willing to go?" Maggie asked. I thought about James's first cry, about the way he'd felt in my arms for those brief moments before they took him away, about 9 months of growing him, loving him, talking to him every night. "As far as it takes." Maggie smiled, and for the first time since James was born, I didn't feel alone. "Then, let's go to war." The first shot was fired 3 days later. "They served me at work," I told Maggie over the phone, staring at the legal documents that had been delivered to my temp job. "In front of everyone." "What does it say?" "Restraining order. I'm not allowed within 500 feet of James, Valerie, Weston, or my parents. They're claiming I'm mentally unstable and pose a threat to the child." "Perfect." "Perfect? How is this perfect?" "Because they just proved our point about coercion. No loving family gets a restraining order against someone who carried their child. This makes them look desperate." I was sitting in my car outside the office building, too embarrassed to go back inside. My supervisor had pulled me aside after the process server left. "Maybe this assignment isn't working out," she'd said, not meeting my eyes. Another job gone. "Sylvia, are you listening?" Maggie's voice cut through my spiral. "Sorry." "What?" I said, "We're filing our counter motion tomorrow. Custody petition, challenge to the surrogacy agreement, and a formal claim on Josephine's estate." "They're going to hate me." "They already hate you. The difference is now you're fighting back." That evening, Zoe called. She was whispering like she was afraid someone might overhear. "Sylvia, what the hell is going on? Mom called me screaming about lawyers and money. I'm claiming my inheritance from Josephine, the one that requires James to be there. Yes. Oh my God, you're really doing this." "They cut me out completely, Zoe. They blocked my number, got a restraining order, and now they're trying to claim money that's legally mine. But James is my biological son. I carried him for 9 months. I gave birth to him and they erased me like I never existed." Zoe was quiet for a long moment. "There's something you should know. Valerie tried to get Josephine's money weeks ago. She showed up at the lawyer's office with fake documents." Maggie told me. "No, I mean, she's been planning this for months. Even before James was born, she was asking questions about Josephine's will. She knew about the inheritance clause." My blood went cold. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe the reason she wanted you to be the surrogate wasn't just about having a baby. Maybe she knew she'd need your biological child to claim the money." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Valerie's sudden interest in having me as a surrogate after years of barely speaking to me, the way she'd pushed for the arrangement even when I'd hesitated, the immediate coldness after James was born. She used me. I think so. And now she's panicking because she can't get the money without admitting you're James's real mother. Are you willing to testify to that? Testify? Sylvia, I can't get involved in this. My mum would kill me. The whole family is choosing sides. What side are you on? Another long pause. I think what they did to you was wrong, but I can't go to court. I'm sorry. She hung up, leaving me alone with the truth. My sister hadn't just stolen my son. She'd planned it from the beginning. The next morning, Maggie called with an update. They hired Talon Holland. Should I know that name? He's expensive, really expensive, the kind of lawyer you hire when you're desperate and willing to do anything to win. Great. It also means they're scared. Holland doesn't come cheap, and we know they're broke. Someone's funding this. Who? I'm working on that. But, Sylvia, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Okay. How far are you willing to go with this? Because Holland plays dirty. He'll dig up every mistake you've ever made, every embarrassing moment, every weakness. He'll try to destroy you publicly. I thought about the restraining order, about being served at work, about watching my family celebrate James on social media while pretending I didn't exist. Let him try. There's more. I think we should consider going public with this story. The media loves a good family drama, especially one involving surrogacy and inheritance. You want me to go on TV? I want to control the narrative before Holland does. Right now, your family is painting you as unstable. We need to show the world what really happened. What if it backfires? What if it doesn't? What if people see the truth? That you were used and discarded by your own family? That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. Sylvia, this is Melina Brewer. I was your nurse when James was born. I remember you. I heard about the legal case. I wanted you to know what they did to you that day wasn't right. I've been a labour and delivery nurse for 15 years, and I've never seen a surrogate treated like that. What do you mean? The way they wouldn't let you hold him. The way they rushed you out of the room. Most surrogates get time with the baby, especially when it's family. Your sister acted like you were contagious. Would you be willing to testify to that? I've already called your lawyer. What they did was cruel, and I won't stay quiet about it. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. That evening, Maggie called with news. Holland filed a motion to have the inheritance case dismissed. He's arguing that surrogacy agreements supersede biological parentage in inheritance law. Can he do that? He can try. But here's the interesting part. The motion was filed by someone with deep pockets. The legal fees alone are probably $50,000. Who's paying for it? I have a theory. But first, I need to ask you again. Are you ready to take this public? Because if we're going to war, we need every weapon we can get. I looked around my empty apartment, at the unpaid bills on my counter, at the silence where my family used to be. Do it. Good. Because I've already scheduled an interview with Channel 7. We're going live tomorrow night. The interview aired on a Tuesday night. I sat in the Channel 7 studio, hands folded in my lap, trying not to shake as the cameras rolled. Tell us what happened after you gave birth, the reporter, Sandra Martinez, said gently. They wouldn't let me hold him. I asked twice, and they acted like I was being inappropriate. Then they handed me a check and told me to go home. A check? Payment, like I was a contractor who'd finished a job. Sandra leaned forward. And your family supported this treatment? My mother told me to stop being selfish. My sister blocked my phone number. They got a restraining order to keep me away from the baby I carried for 9 months. The segment was only 8 minutes long, but it felt like hours. By the time I got home, my phone was exploding. The first call was from Mum. How could you do this to us? She screamed before I could even say hello. You're destroying this family. I'm telling the truth. You're embarrassing us. Everyone we know saw that interview. The neighbours, people from church. Good. Maybe they should know what kind of people you really are. You ungrateful little... The line went dead. The next call was from a number I didn't recognise. Is this Sylvia? I saw your interview. I'm a surrogate too, and what your family did to you is horrific. I just wanted you to know you're not alone. Then another. Girl, I'm rooting for you. Get your baby back. And another. I can't believe your own family treated you like that. You're so brave for speaking out. But the negative calls came too. You're a greedy bitch trying to steal someone else's baby. Surrogates don't get to keep the children. That's not how it works. You're mentally unstable. I hope you never get near that poor child. By midnight, the Channel 7 Facebook page had over 3,000 comments on the interview video. I scrolled through them, my stomach churning. Team Sylvia, get your son back, Mama. This is so sad. Her own family abandoned her. Something is not right here. Why would they treat her like this unless they're hiding something? But there were just as many attacking me. She's just after the money. $10 million. Of course she wants the kid now. Surrogates who try to keep babies are the worst. She knew the deal. The sister seems like a loving mother. This woman is trying to destroy a family. The next morning, Maggie called with an update. It's working. Holland's office has been fielding calls all night. The story's gone viral. Is that good or bad? Both. The pressure's getting to them. Valerie posted a response on Facebook. I pulled up her page immediately. The post was long, written in her perfectly polished voice. I'm heartbroken by the lies being spread about our family. Sylvia agreed to help us have a child, and we will be forever grateful for that gift. But now she's trying to destroy our family for money. James is our son, legally and in every way that matters. We're fighting to protect him from someone who has shown herself to be unstable and vindictive. Please respect our privacy during this difficult time. The comments were pouring in there too, but these were mostly supportive of Valerie. Stay strong. You're protecting your baby. I can't believe she's putting you through this. Some people will do anything for money. Praying for your family during this attack. My phone rang. It was Maggie. Have you seen the response? Just read it. Good. Because now we know their strategy. They're painting you as mentally unstable and money hungry, which means we need to hit back harder. How? Melina's going on record. Channel 7 wants to do a follow-up segment tomorrow night. She's going to talk about what she witnessed in the delivery room. That afternoon, I got a call from Zoe. Sylvia, you need to stop this. Stop what? Telling the truth? The whole family is falling apart. Uncle Larry had to take blood pressure medication after seeing the interview. Aunt Patricia is getting harassed at work because someone recognised her from your Facebook photos. Maybe they should have thought about that before they threw me away. This isn't just about you anymore. You're hurting innocent people. Innocent? Where were these innocent people when I was being erased from James's life? Look, I get that you're angry. Angry? Zoe, they used me to get pregnant, stole my child, and now they're trying to steal my inheritance. This goes way beyond angry. But the money is mine. Josephine left it to me with conditions they can't meet, without admitting I'm James's mother. They're the ones being greedy. Just think about what you're doing. Once this goes too far, there's no coming back. She hung up and I realised she was right. There was no coming back, but I was past caring. The second interview aired the next night. Melina was professional but firm. In 15 years of nursing, I've never seen a surrogate treated with such coldness. Most families include the surrogate in the celebration, especially when it's a family member. Sylvia was treated like an outsider from the moment the baby was born. What did you observe specifically? She asked to hold the baby twice and was refused both times. The family acted like she was contaminated. Then they rushed her out of the room while they had their bonding time. It was cruel. Sandra turned to the camera. We reached out to the family for comment, but their attorney advised them not to respond. That night, the story exploded across social media. Justice for Sylvia started trending on Twitter. TikTok videos analysed the case. Reddit threads dissected every detail. But Valerie's supporters were organising too. Protect James became their rallying cry. They shared photos of Valerie with James, painting her as a devoted mother under attack. The battle lines were drawn, and my family was on the other side. Friday morning, Maggie called with the news that changed everything. I found out who's funding their legal team. Who? Your parents took out a second mortgage on their house. They're paying Holland's fees. They mortgaged their house for $400,000. Sylvia, they're betting everything on this case. If they lose their home. I sat down hard. They really think I'm the enemy. They think you're trying to destroy them. And maybe you are. Maybe I am. Good, because the court date is set, 2 weeks from Monday. Are you ready? I looked around my empty apartment, at the life I'd built from nothing after they'd thrown me away. I'm ready. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters and protesters, signs reading, "Justice for Sylvia," mixed with others saying, "Protect James." I pulled my jacket tighter and pushed through the crowd with Maggie beside me. "Sylvia! Sylvia! How do you feel about taking a child from his loving home?" a reporter shouted. "No comment," Maggie said firmly, guiding me toward the entrance. Inside, the courtroom was standing room only. I spotted my parents in the front row behind Valerie and Weston. Mum wouldn't look at me. Dad stared straight ahead like I was invisible. Judge Patricia Morrison called the court to order. She was a stern woman in her 60s with silver hair and no patience for drama. "This is a custody hearing, not a circus," she announced. "I will not tolerate outbursts from the gallery." Holland stood first. He was exactly what I'd expected. Expensive suit, perfect hair, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. "Your Honour, this case is simple. Sylvia Porter entered into a surrogacy agreement with my clients. She was compensated for her services and willingly relinquished all parental rights. Now, motivated by a substantial inheritance, she's attempting to destroy a loving family." He gestured toward Valerie, who was dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "James has known only one mother, Valerie Wallace. To remove him from the only home he's ever known would be traumatic and cruel. We ask the court to uphold the original surrogacy agreement and dismiss this frivolous custody claim." Maggie stood when it was our turn. "Your Honour, this case is about more than custody. It's about a family that used and discarded a woman who gave them everything. The evidence will show that Sylvia was coerced into signing away her rights, then systematically erased from her biological child's life." She opened her folder. "We'll prove that the defendants knew about the inheritance clause before the surrogacy arrangement began, and that their treatment of Sylvia after the birth was designed to eliminate her from the equation entirely." Holland called Valerie as his first witness. She took the stand wearing a navy dress and pearls, looking every inch the grieving mother. "Mrs. Wallace, please tell the court about your relationship with your sister. I love Sylvia. I always have. When we couldn't have children, she generously offered to help us. We were so grateful. And after James was born, we tried to maintain a relationship, but Sylvia became difficult. She wanted to be involved in ways that weren't appropriate. She would show up unannounced, call constantly, even tried to take James from my mother's arms." I gripped the table. That wasn't what happened. We had to protect our son. The restraining order was a last resort. "Mrs. Wallace, are you aware of the inheritance your sister stands to gain? $10 million. It's heartbreaking to think she tried to take my child for money." Maggie stood for cross-examination. "Mrs. Wallace, when did you first learn about Josephine's inheritance?" "After she died, when the will was read. Are you sure about that? Valerie hesitated. Yes, Your Honour, I'd like to present Exhibit A. Maggie handed papers to the clerk. These are phone records showing multiple calls between Mrs. Wallace and Josephine's estate attorney, dating back 8 months, 2 months before James was conceived. Holland objected, but the judge allowed it. Mrs. Wallace, why were you calling the estate attorney before your sister was even pregnant? I don't remember those calls. Let me refresh your memory. You called asking about the inheritance clause, specifically whether a biological child needed to be present to claim the money. Valerie's face went pale. That's not... I was just curious about Josephine's will. Curious enough to call 6 times in 2 weeks? Objection. Badgering the witness. Sustained. Move on, counsellor. But the damage was done. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Next, Holland called Weston to the stand. Mr. Wallace, describe your relationship with James. He's my son in every way that matters. I was there for every doctor's appointment during the pregnancy, every milestone since he was born. I love him more than life itself. And Sylvia's role? She was helping us have a family. We're grateful, but her job was done when James was born. Maggie's cross-examination was brutal. Mr. Wallace, is it true your construction company is facing bankruptcy? We've had some financial challenges. Challenges? You're 3 months behind on your mortgage, your business account is overdrawn, and you've maxed out 7 credit cards. Would you call that challenges? Objection? Relevance? Your Honour, it goes to motive. The defendants desperately need this inheritance money. I'll allow it. Mr. Wallace, did you know about the inheritance clause when you agreed to the surrogacy? No. Then why did your wife call the estate attorney multiple times before the pregnancy? Weston looked at Holland desperately. I don't know about any calls. You don't discuss your wife's phone calls with estate attorneys? Objection. Sustained. Then came the moment I'd been dreading. Holland called Mom to the stand. Mrs. Porter, you were present when James was born? Yes, it was beautiful. Valerie was so happy. And Sylvia's behaviour afterward? Mom looked directly at me for the first time all day. She became obsessive, calling constantly, showing up uninvited. We were worried about her mental state. Did you support the restraining order? We had to protect James. Sylvia wasn't thinking clearly. Maggie stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Porter, did you tell your daughter to stop being selfish when she asked to hold the baby she just delivered? Mum's jaw tightened. She needed to understand her role was finished. Her role? You mean carrying your grandson for 9 months? She was helping her sister. That's what family does. Is cutting off all contact what family does too? We didn't cut off contact. She became impossible to deal with. Mrs. Porter, are you aware that you and your husband took out a second mortgage to pay for this legal battle? Holland jumped up. Objection. Relevance. It shows how far the family will go to keep the inheritance from my client. Sustained. The jury will disregard. But it was too late. Everyone had heard it. The biggest surprise came when Maggie called Forrest to the stand. Valerie's 12-year-old stepson looked terrified as he was sworn in. Forrest, you were present when Sylvia visited your grandmother's house. Yes. What did you see? Sylvia was crying. She just wanted to hold the baby, but Grandma wouldn't let her and Mum got really mad. Did Sylvia try to take James? No. She just asked to hold him, like normal holding, but everyone acted like she was trying to kidnap him or something. Holland's objection was overruled. Forrest, in your opinion, was Sylvia trying to hurt James? No way. She was really gentle with him when he was in her belly. She used to talk to him and play music. She loved him. Valerie was crying openly now, and not the pretty tears from before. The day ended with Melina's testimony about the delivery room, which painted my family as cold and calculating. As we left the courthouse, reporters swarmed again. "How do you think it went today?" someone shouted. "The truth is coming out," I said, surprising myself by speaking. That's all I ever wanted. That night, the news coverage was brutal for my family. The phone call evidence was everywhere. Social media had turned decisively in my favour, but I felt hollow. Watching my mother lie on the stand, seeing the hatred in Valerie's eyes, this wasn't victory. This was the complete destruction of everything I'd once called family. Maggie called that evening. The judge wants to see James before making her final ruling. She's ordering a temporary custody arrangement. You'll get supervised visits while the case is pending. I'm going to see him tomorrow. 2 hours with a social worker present. I hung up and cried for the first time since the trial began, not from sadness, but from something I'd almost forgotten how to feel. Hope. The supervised visit took place in a sterile room at the Family Services building. James was 4 months old now, bigger than when I'd last seen him, with Weston's dark hair and what looked like my nose. The social worker, Mrs. Chen, no, Mrs. Rodriguez, sat in the corner with her clipboard while Valerie reluctantly placed James in my arms. 15 minutes, she said coldly. That's all the judge ordered. But the moment James looked up at me, something clicked. He didn't cry or fuss. He just stared with those serious baby eyes like he was trying to figure out where he knew me from. "Hi, sweetheart," I whispered. "I'm your mama." Valerie made a disgusted noise. "Don't confuse him." "Mrs. Wallace, please step outside," Mrs. Rodriguez said firmly. "This is Sylvia's time." James wrapped his tiny fingers around mine, and I felt that same overwhelming love I'd experienced during pregnancy. This was my son, my baby, and I was going to fight for him until my last breath. The final hearing was scheduled for the following Monday. The weekend felt endless. Sunday night, Zoe called. "Sylvia, I need to tell you something. About the inheritance." "What about it?" Valerie knew. She's known for over a year. She had lunch with Josephine last spring, and Josephine told her about the will, about the clause. My blood went cold. "You're sure?" "I was there. We were at that little cafe downtown, and Josephine was talking about how proud she was of you, how she wanted to make sure you were taken care of. She mentioned the inheritance and the condition about your biological child. And Valerie? She got this look on her face, like she was calculating something. 2 weeks later, she called you about being a surrogate. Will you testify to that?" Zoe was quiet for a long moment. "Yes, I can't watch this anymore. What she did was wrong." Monday morning, the courthouse was even more packed than before. The story had gone national over the weekend. I spotted camera crews from 3 major networks. Judge Morrison called the court to order. "Before we proceed with closing arguments, I have some questions for the witnesses." She called Valerie back to the stand. "Mrs. Wallace, I want to give you one more opportunity to tell the truth about when you learned of the inheritance clause." Holland whispered urgently in Valerie's ear, but she shook her head. "I told the truth, Your Honour. I learned about it after Josephine died." "I see. Bailiff, please escort Zoe Dawson to the stand." Valerie's face went white as Zoe walked down the aisle. She looked terrified, but determined. "Miss Dawson, please tell the court about a conversation you witnessed between Valerie Wallace and Josephine Dawson." "It was last April. We were having lunch at Rosie's Cafe. Josephine was talking about her will, about how she wanted to leave money to Sylvia, but only if her biological child was present to claim it." "And Mrs. Wallace's reaction?" "She asked a lot of questions. about the exact wording, about whether adopted children would count, about what would happen if Sylvia didn't have kids. What happened next? 2 weeks later, Valerie called Sylvia about being a surrogate. She'd never mentioned wanting Sylvia to carry her baby before that lunch. Holland jumped up. Objection! Speculation! Overruled. Continue, Miss Dawson. Valerie planned this whole thing. She knew she needed Sylvia's biological child to get the money. The courtroom erupted. Judge Morrison banged her gavel repeatedly. Order! Order in my courtroom! Holland was on his feet, arguing frantically, but it was too late. The truth was out. Your Honour, Maggie said, we'd like to present additional evidence. Phone records showing Mrs. Wallace called 3 different surrogacy agencies the week after that lunch, asking about family member arrangements. Objection. Overruled. I'll allow it. The records were damning. Valerie had researched surrogacy extensively immediately after learning about the inheritance. When Holland gave his closing argument, he looked defeated. Your Honour, regardless of my client's knowledge of the inheritance, the fact remains that a surrogacy agreement was signed. James has bonded with his legal parents. To disrupt that now would be traumatic. Maggie's closing was powerful. Your Honour, this case is about a woman who was used, manipulated, and discarded by her own family. Valerie Wallace orchestrated an elaborate scheme to steal both Sylvia's child and her inheritance. The evidence is overwhelming. She gestured toward me. Sylvia didn't know about the inheritance when she agreed to be a surrogate. She did it out of love for her sister. That love was repaid with betrayal, lies, and legal threats. The defendants have mortgaged their home to fight this case. They've hired expensive lawyers and launched a media campaign to paint Sylvia as unstable. Why? Because they know the truth. James is Sylvia's biological son, and she has every right to claim both her child and her inheritance. Judge Morrison recessed for 2 hours to consider her ruling. I sat in the hallway with Maggie, watching my family huddle with Holland at the other end of the corridor. Mum walked over during the break. Sylvia, please, think about what you're doing to this family. What I'm doing? Mum, Valerie used me to get pregnant so she could steal my inheritance. That money should go to James anyway, for his future. It will, when I raise him. You can't take a baby from his mother. I am his mother. Mum's face crumpled. You're destroying everything. Our family, our reputation, our home. You destroyed our family the day you told me to stop being selfish for wanting to hold my own son. She walked away without another word. When court reconvened, Judge Morrison looked grim. This case has revealed a level of manipulation and deception that frankly disgusts me. The evidence clearly shows that Mrs. Wallace knew about the inheritance clause and used that knowledge to manipulate her sister into a surrogacy arrangement. Valerie was sobbing openly now. However, I must also consider the best interests of the child. James has lived with the Wallaces for 4 months. He knows them as his parents. My heart sank. Therefore, I am awarding joint custody, with primary residence rotating monthly between both parties until James reaches school age, at which point we will revisit the arrangement. What? Valerie screamed. You can't do this. He's my son. Furthermore, I am ruling that Sylvia Porter is the legal biological mother for purposes of inheritance law. The estate of Josephine Dawson should be released to her immediately. Holland was arguing frantically, but Judge Morrison cut him off. My ruling stands. This court is adjourned. The courtroom exploded into chaos. Reporters rushed forward. Valerie was screaming at Holland. Weston looked like he might faint. I sat in stunned silence. I'd won. I'd actually won. But as I watched my family fall apart around me, victory felt hollow. Come on, Maggie said. pulling me toward the exit. "Let's get you out of here." As we pushed through the crowd, I heard Valerie's voice above the chaos. "You've destroyed this family. I hope you're happy. You'll never be forgiven for this." She was right about one thing. I would never be forgiven, but I had my son back. And sometimes that had to be enough. The first night James stayed at my apartment, he cried for 3 hours straight. "He doesn't know me," I told Maggie over the phone, bouncing him gently while he wailed. "Maybe the judge was wrong. Maybe this is traumatic for him. Give it time. Babies adjust faster than you think." But I wasn't sure I was adjusting. The apartment felt too small, too quiet when he finally fell asleep. I dreamed of this moment for months, but reality was messier than my fantasies. The inheritance money had been released, but I hadn't touched it yet. $10 million sat in an account I was afraid to look at, like it might disappear if I acknowledged it was real. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I hope you're satisfied. You got your money and destroyed a family. James will never love you the way he loves his real mother." I blocked the number, but 3 more appeared within the hour. Valerie's supporters had found my contact information. The doorbell rang at 8 p.m. I looked through the peephole and saw Weston standing in the hallway, looking haggard. "What do you want?" "To talk, please." Against my better judgment, I opened the door. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past week. "Nice place," he said, glancing around my studio apartment. "What do you want, Weston?" "I want to apologize." I almost laughed. Apologize? I knew. About the inheritance. Valerie told me after that lunch with Josephine. I should have stopped her, but we were so desperate for money and I wanted a baby so badly. "So you used me?" "Yes, and I'm sorry. What we did was wrong." James stirred in his bassinet, making soft baby noises. Weston's face crumpled when he saw him. "Can I hold him? Just for a minute?" I hesitated, then lifted James and placed him in Weston's arms. He held him like he was made of glass, tears streaming down his face. "I do love him, you know. It wasn't all fake." "I know." "Valerie's not handling this well. She's talking about moving away, starting over somewhere else. And you?" "The business is finished. We're losing the house next month. I'll probably have to file for bankruptcy." He looked up at me. "I know you have no reason to help us, but..." "No, Sylvia, please. I'm not asking for the inheritance money. Just maybe you could put in a good word with the judge about visitation. Valerie's his mother too, in the ways that matter. She had her chance to be his mother. She chose money instead." Weston handed James back to me. I guess I deserved that. After he left, I sat in the dark holding my son, thinking about the wreckage of the past 6 months. My phone had 17 missed calls from reporters wanting follow-up interviews. The story was still trending on social media, with strangers debating whether I was a hero or a villain. The next morning, Zoe called. "How are you holding up?" "I'm tired. James is still adjusting and the media attention is insane. I saw the protesters outside the courthouse yesterday. Justice for James is signs everywhere. They think I stole him. You didn't steal him. You're his mother." "Am I? Sometimes I feel like I'm just babysitting someone else's kid." "Sylvia, you carried him for 9 months. You gave birth to him. You fought for him when everyone else gave up on you. You're his mother. What about you? How's the family treating you after the testimony?" Zoe was quiet for a moment. "Mom's not speaking to me. Dad says I betrayed the family, but I couldn't watch them destroy you anymore." "I'm sorry. I never wanted you to get caught in the middle. I chose to get involved. Someone had to tell the truth." That afternoon, I took James to the park. It was the first time I'd left the apartment since the custody ruling, and I was paranoid about photographers. but he seemed to like the fresh air and I needed to feel normal for an hour. A woman approached us at the playground. She was about my age, pushing a toddler on the swings. "Excuse me, are you Sylvia Porter?" I tensed, ready to run. "I just wanted to say thank you," she continued. "I'm a surrogate too, and your story made me realise I deserve better treatment from the family I'm helping. You're brave." "I don't feel brave. Trust me, you are. What you went through, what you survived, that takes courage." She walked away before I could respond, leaving me staring after her. That evening, I finally opened my laptop and logged into the inheritance account. $10,437,000. More money than I'd ever imagined having. I transferred $50,000 to a college fund for James. Then, I sat staring at the screen, trying to figure out what came next. My phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognise, but I answered anyway. "Sylvia? This is Dr. Rebecca Martinez from Children's Hospital. I saw your story on the news and I wanted to reach out." "Okay?" "I run a support program for women who've been through traumatic birth experiences. Surrogates, mothers who've lost custody, women whose families have failed them during vulnerable times. I think you might benefit from talking to others who understand what you've been through." "I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Think about it. You've been through something most people can't imagine. But you're not alone." After I hung up, I looked at James sleeping peacefully in his bassinet. He looked so small, so innocent. He had no idea his existence had torn apart 2 families and made headlines across the country. But he was mine. Finally, legally, completely mine. I picked up my phone and scrolled through the contact list until I found Mom's number. My finger hovered over the call button for a long time. Then I deleted it. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Some families, once broken, stay broken. But sometimes, from the ashes of what was destroyed, something new can grow. I looked around my tiny apartment, at the bassinet, the bottles, the diapers, the chaos of new motherhood. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was mine. James opened his eyes and looked at me, and for the first time since he was born, I saw recognition there. Not confusion or fear, but familiarity. "Hi, baby," I whispered. "It's just us now." He made a soft cooing sound, and I chose to believe it meant he understood. We were going to be okay. Different than I'd imagined, smaller than I'd hoped, but okay. And sometimes, okay is enough.
I never thought I'd hear my own family talk about me like I didn't matter. It all started by chance. Maybe it was a mistake, or maybe it was meant to happen. My older sister Ruth had just bought a new phone, so she left her old one behind. My phone was barely working, so I started using hers without thinking much about it. I didn't even clear any of her old data. One night, I was lying in bed, scrolling through apps when a message popped up. It was from a group chat called Family Priority, a chat I didn't even know existed. Curious, I tapped on it. What I read made my heart sink. Ruth wrote, "Ugh, she's so pathetic. She'll always put us first even when we treat her like trash." Then Mom replied, "That's what she's for. She's never had a backbone, just like her father." Ruth responded, "It's actually funny. She works extra shifts to help pay bills, but she never does anything for herself." Mom added, "Because she knows she's not worth more than that." Ruth said, "I bet if we asked, she'd give up her college fund for my wedding." Mom answered, "We should try and see." As I read their messages, tears filled my eyes. My vision blurred, and my hands shook as I held the phone. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. These were the people I had spent my life caring for, sacrificing for. I stayed up late cooking when Mom was too tired. I gave Ruth money when she needed it. I always put their needs before my own. And they laughed at me for it. They didn't see love or effort. They saw weakness. They thought I was a joke. I felt a deep pain in my chest, but it quickly turned into anger. They believed I'd always be there, always giving, always quiet. They thought I'd never stand up for myself. So I let them keep thinking that just for a little while. For the next few days, I acted like nothing had changed. I still helped out in the kitchen. I still worked extra shifts to cover bills. I still smiled and nodded when Ruth talked about her wedding. But inside, I was done. Every word they said cut me like a knife. Every fake smile made me feel sick. I realized then that I wasn't really part of this family, not in the way I thought I was. And soon, I'd walk away for good. I was nothing more than their helper, their servant. And they didn't even know I had figured it out. One evening, Ruth came home beaming with joy. She dropped into the chair next to me and said, "I found the perfect wedding venue." I looked at her and pretended to care. "But there's a little problem," she added with a fake sad face. "It's kind of over budget. But I was thinking you wouldn't mind helping out, right?" Before I could say anything, Mom jumped in quickly. "You don't need college right now, sweetie. Ruth's wedding is more important." I just stared at them. The nerve they had. They didn't ask. They decided that I would give up my dreams for Ruth's big day. But I didn't let them see my anger. I just smiled and nodded. They had no idea what I was about to do. That night, I logged into my bank account. I transferred every single penny from my college savings into a new account with only my name on it. Then I started planning. Over the next few weeks, I acted exactly how they expected me to. I cooked. I cleaned. I helped around the house. I let Ruth go on and on about her wedding dress, the guest list, the cake flavors. I smiled and pretended everything was fine. But behind the scenes, I was getting ready to leave. I quietly started selling things around the house they wouldn't miss. Some old jewelry, a few designer bags, anything valuable. Every dollar went into my new account. I was building my escape fund. Then the final piece fell into place. I got a job offer in another city. Far away. A place they couldn't control me. A place where I could finally live for myself. But before I could leave, things exploded. One night, Ruth burst into my room, furious. "You still haven't sent the money for the venue," she yelled. I blinked and said, "Oh, I thought I did." Her face twisted with anger. Mom called the venue. "They haven't received anything." Just then, Mom walked into the room, arms crossed. "We need that money now." "This isn't about you," she said firmly. Something inside me broke open. I stood up. My heart was calm, but I felt a fire inside. "I don't have the money anymore," I said quietly. Ruth's face turned pale. "What do you mean?" I looked at them both. "I used it.
For me."
For once in my life, I chose myself. I saw fear slowly appear on their faces. Mom stepped forward, her voice sharp and angry. "That money was for the family," she said. I laughed. Really laughed. "You mean it was for Ruth?" I said. They didn't say a word. That silence was all the answer I needed. That was the moment I made my choice. I walked away. They started shouting. Ruth cried and screamed so loudly the whole house could probably hear. "How could you do this to me?" she yelled. Mom's voice trembled. "Where do you think you're going? You don't have anywhere else to go." But they were wrong. I turned and picked up the suitcase I had packed weeks ago. It had been sitting in my closet the whole time, and they never even noticed. I placed it over my shoulder, stood tall, and looked them in the eyes. "I got a job," I said calmly. "I have my own place now. I don't need you anymore." I had never seen my mother look so scared. But it wasn't because she was going to miss me. She was scared of losing the one person she could always use. I walked right past them and out the door. I walked into a life where I finally mattered. And I didn't say another word. After all the years I spent being their helper, their fixer, the one who gave up everything for them while they laughed behind my back, I was finally free. And now they were falling apart. My mother, who always spoke to me like I was a burden, was suddenly begging for my attention. Ruth, the perfect daughter they always praised while ignoring me, was now standing there with nothing. They thought I didn't matter. But the truth was, I was the one keeping everything together. And now that I was gone, they were lost. I started my new life, quietly. At first, it felt strange. Old habits are hard to break. I found myself stopping at the grocery store, unsure if I should buy something nice or stick to the cheapest item like I used to. Then I remembered there were no more family bills. No more people waiting at home for dinner. No more calls asking me to fix someone else's mess. It was just me now. So I bought the good coffee. I bought the soft blanket. I picked up all the little things I had always told myself I didn't deserve. That night, I sat in my small apartment, drinking warm coffee in silence. No shouting. No guilt. No demands. Just peace. I had never really felt peace before. But the first time I went out with my coworkers after work, something changed. It felt strange but good, almost like I was living someone else's life. I had always thought I wasn't the kind of person others wanted around. I believed I was just the one people called when they needed help. I was useful but never truly wanted. But that evening, I was sitting in a cozy restaurant, laughing with people who actually liked me. They weren't using me. They weren't pretending. They enjoyed being around me just for who I was. That feeling was new to me. I didn't know what to call it at first, but soon I realized. It was belonging. A soft, warm feeling spread through my chest. I hadn't known how much I was missing it until that moment. It had been 3 months since I last spoke to my family. 3 months of silence. 3 months of healing. 3 months of real freedom. Then one evening my phone buzzed. It was a message from Ruth. I can't believe you're doing this to us.
To me.
Do you even care about family? I stared at the screen. My stomach turned. There was no apology. No regret. Just more guilt, more pressure. She still thought she could control me. I took a deep breath and sat quietly for a moment, thinking about how I felt. Then I did something I never thought I'd have the courage to do. I blocked her. Then I blocked my mother. I blocked every number they might use to reach me. For the first time in my life, I chose me, and it felt powerful. Days passed, then weeks. I kept expecting more messages or even someone showing up at my door, but nothing happened. Instead, I started hearing things through others. Some of my extended family, who had always stayed silent while I was mistreated, started reaching out. A few tried to guilt me too. Your mother is struggling. She's heartbroken without you. Ruth's wedding was canceled. You should be there for her. But I didn't answer. I had spent my whole life being there for everyone else. It was time to be there for myself. Then one day, I got a message from my cousin. He had always been kind, even if he didn't get involved before. He wrote, I heard what happened. I'm proud of you for walking away. They never deserved you. I read the message over and over. My eyes filled with tears, but this time, not from pain. It was relief. Someone saw me. Someone understood. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. I got an email from my mother. It was short, cold, and straight to the point. I hope you're happy. You ruined this family. I read it once, then again, and then I laughed. She really believed I was the one who ruined everything. Not the years of treating me like I didn't matter. Not the way they used me, took from me, and expected me to give up everything for them. No, in her mind, I was the villain. Just because I finally chose myself. I didn't even reply. I deleted the email and continued with my day like nothing had happened. Months passed, and, to my surprise, I started to grow. I got promoted at work. I made real friends, people who liked me for me, not for what I could do for them. Slowly, I began to discover a version of myself I had never known. A version that didn't need anyone's approval. Then one day, something unexpected happened. I walked into a cafe, and just as I stepped inside, I heard a familiar voice. Oh my God. I turned around. It was Ruth. She looked different, tired, anxious, like someone who had never learned to stand on her own because she was always used to others carrying her. For a second, something old inside me stirred. A part of me wanted to ask if she was okay. That caring side I had always carried was still there, quiet but alive. But then I remembered she was no longer my responsibility. She opened her mouth, probably about to say something. But I didn't let her. I turned away, walk to the counter, and order my coffee. I could feel her eyes on me, watching, waiting, maybe even hoping I would look at her, say something, anything. But I didn't. She had spent years treating me like I was invisible. Now she finally knew what that felt like. That encounter left me feeling nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just peace. I used to think I'd always feel tied to them, that no matter how much they hurt me, I'd never be able to fully break free. But seeing Ruth standing there, lost, unsure, I realized something huge. I didn't owe her anything. Not a smile. Not a nod. Not even a kind look. She was no one to me now. And that freedom felt better than I ever imagined. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Ruth wasn't the only one who wanted something. My mom was still out there, waiting. 4 days later, it happened. There was a knock on my door, loud and firm. I didn't even need to look. I already knew. It was her. I thought about ignoring it, leaving her out there in the cold, like she had done to me for years. But no. I opened the door. Because this time I wanted her to see me, really see me. Not as the quiet, scared girl she once controlled, but as the strong woman who had finally walked away. For good. I opened the door. My mother stood there, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line. "You look well," she said. The words didn't sound kind. They sounded like an accusation, like she was angry that I was doing okay without her. I leaned against the doorframe, folded my arms, and asked, "What do you want?" She let out a sharp breath and looked away for a moment. "Can I come in?" "No," I said. She flinched. It was the first time in my life I had ever said no to her. But I didn't owe her anything anymore. I had nothing left to give. She sighed and rubbed her forehead.
"Fine.
"We'll talk here."
I didn't reply.
I just let the silence hang in the air. I wanted her to feel uncomfortable, to realize that she didn't get to control me anymore. After a long pause, she cleared her throat. "I know you've been avoiding us, but it's time to stop being childish." I almost laughed. Childish? Was choosing to walk away from the people who mocked me and used me childish? How is that childish? I asked, tilting my head. Her jaw tightened. "We're family. We don't abandon each other." I looked at her, letting her words hang in the cold air between us. Then I said softly, "You abandoned me a long time ago." She stared at me, and for the first time, she didn't know what to say. Her hands turned into fists. Her lips pressed even tighter together. She was trying to stay calm, but I could tell she hated this feeling, losing control. My mother had always shaped me into the quiet daughter who never argued, always gave, and asked for nothing. But that version of me was gone. "I don't know what you're talking about," she finally said, voice clipped. "We've always taken care of you." I shook my head. "That's not true." Her eyes flickered. "You called me pathetic," I said, keeping my voice calm. "You and Ruth laughed about how I always put you first, even when you treated me badly. You said I was only useful when I was giving things up for you." Her face turned pale. "You're not even denying it," I added. She exhaled loudly. "I don't have time for this." "No," I said firmly. "You don't have time for me. You never did, unless you needed something." Her nostrils flared. "That's not true." I folded my arms. "So, you're just here to check in? Not to ask for anything?"
She paused.
That pause told me everything I needed to know. She sighed and rubbed her temples, like she was the one in pain. Then finally, she dropped the act.
"Fine," she snapped.
"Yes, I need something."
Of course she did.
She stood taller, trying to act strong again. Ruth's struggling. She hasn't been the same since the wedding was canceled. I said nothing. Mom sighed. "She needs help. Money." I let out a slow breath. "You're unbelievable." She frowned. "Excuse me?" She treated me like dirt, I said, my voice steady but strong. She humiliated me, made fun of me, used me. And now that everything in her life is falling apart, you want me to come in and save her? "She's your sister," Mom replied quickly. I let out a short, dry laugh.
"No."
"She's not." Mom's eyes widened a little. What do you mean? I don't have a sister, I said clearly. Not anymore. The words felt like fresh air, like freedom I had waited for my whole life. Mom's face turned cold. You're being cruel. No, I said, stepping closer to her. My voice was low, but firm. Cruel is what you did. Cruel is calling your own daughter pathetic behind her back. Cruel is asking me to give up my future just so Ruth could have a wedding she didn't even deserve. Mom pressed her lips tightly together. You're making a mistake. I smiled.
No.
For the first time in my life, I'm making the right choice. Then I took a step back and gently closed the door. The moment I heard the lock click, a wave of peace swept over me. For years, I had been their helper, their bank, their punching bag. But not anymore. I didn't check if she was still standing there outside. I didn't care. I turned around, walked to my couch, curled up with a blanket, and finally, I let myself breathe. Days passed. Then weeks. Mom never came back. Ruth didn't reach out either. And just like that, the weight I had carried for so long was gone. I started to grow. I traveled. I made real friends who cared about me, not because they needed something from me, but because they liked me. I began to live a life where I mattered. And not once did I miss them. Then one day, while walking through the city, I saw them again. Mom and Ruth were sitting together at a small cafe. Their faces looked tired and worn. Gone were the perfect smiles, the polished clothes. They looked like people who had finally realized what they had lost. I paused for just a second. Ruth's eyes met mine. She froze. Mom turned and saw me too. Her face was unreadable. For a moment, I wondered if they would come over. If they'd say sorry. But they didn't. They knew. I wasn't theirs anymore. So I turned and walked away, without looking back. I built a life for myself. A good life. One filled with people who loved me for who I am, not what I could give them. And as for my past, it faded away, just like the ghosts they had always been. I never looked back, and I never regretted it. The phone call came on a regular Saturday morning. Everything about that day felt normal. I still had the taste of coffee in my mouth and a few sticky notes stuck to my sleeve from rushing around earlier. I had just sat down at my desk, ready to start work, when my phone screen lit up. It was a number I didn't recognize. No name, no caller ID. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello, is this Catherine Hahn? A calm voice asked. I paused for a second. Yes, I said. This is Henry calling from Liberty National Bank, he continued. We're contacting you about your mortgage balance of $640,000. I sat up straighter. Excuse me? I said, sharper than I intended. I don't have a mortgage. You must be calling the wrong person. There was a short silence on the other end. Then he said, Ma'am, the file we're reviewing has your full name, date of birth, and social security number. You're listed as the main borrower. The loan was opened 4 years ago. 4 years ago. My heart skipped a beat. That was the year my younger sister, Jacqueline, had started talking about buying a house. I remembered her excitement as she flipped through home photos on Pinterest during dinner. She'd said it was going to be her fresh start. Something big enough for a future family. She made jokes about credit scores like they didn't matter. Mom had just smiled and said, We'll figure something out. Family always finds a way. But not like this. Not by using my name. Somehow, I stayed calm enough to thank Henry and end the call. Then I just sat there, frozen, staring at nothing. The quiet hum from my laptop fan was the only sound in the room. My hands felt sweaty. My mouth had gone completely dry. I kept telling myself this had to be a mistake. Maybe it was a small error. A different person with the same name. Maybe someone mixed up the files. But deep inside, I knew better. Something didn't feel right. I got up and went to my room. I opened the drawer beside my bed and started searching. I pulled out old payslips, greeting cards, and bills until I found what I was looking for, an envelope from Liberty National Bank. It was just a flyer, one of those boring letters I had thrown aside months ago without reading. Back then, it seemed like junk mail. But now, looking at it, I realized it might have been a warning. A sign I didn't catch. Everything started to click. And my chest felt heavy with the truth I didn't want to admit. Someone close to me had used my name to take out a loan. And I was the one left to deal with it. I sat on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by open envelopes, old papers, and scattered sheets. It felt like I was looking at the broken pieces of my life. I didn't own a house. I didn't have a car loan. I never shared accounts with anyone. I kept my finances simple on purpose. But now, somehow, I was buried in $600,000 of debt. And it wasn't just a stranger behind it. I could only think of one group of people who had all my personal information, my full name, social security number, and even my signature. I had given them those things myself over the years, helping with school forms, doctor visits, and opening bank accounts. I never thought twice about it back then. It was my family. That thought hit me like a cold wind. I didn't want to believe it. But some betrayals aren't loud or dramatic. They don't come crashing in. Instead, they slip in quietly, closing the door behind them while you aren't looking. I didn't sleep at all that night. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, going over the same question again and again. If they had asked me for help, would I have said yes? I honestly didn't think I would have. But that wasn't even the point. The real pain came from knowing they never asked. They just took. By the time the sun came up, I couldn't pretend it was a mistake anymore. Everything added up, the timing, the paperwork, the silence. Jacqueline, my younger sister, had been talking about her dream house not long before the loan was taken. She described a big porch, a cozy basement, and extra rooms for whatever the future might bring. Back then, she was jobless. Her credit was terrible, but Mom had smiled and said, "Don't worry, Ruth always finds a way." Now I knew what she meant. I was the way. I went to my file cabinet and started digging. I hadn't opened those drawers in years. Inside, I found old tax forms, copies of my social security card, insurance paperwork, things I'd helped Mom sign when she had surgery. And there it was in my own handwriting. All the tools someone would need to pretend to be me. I had given it all to them. Slowly. Trustingly. Because I was the one they always counted on. I was the good daughter. The quiet one. The one who fixed problems instead of causing them. Mom used to say it like it was a compliment. Catherine doesn't need help. She's strong. She figures things out. That was the trade-off. Jacqueline got second chances. I got silence. When Jacqueline forgot to clean up, it was, "She's just going through a phase." If I forgot something, it was, "You should know better, Catherine." When she crashed her car, Dad said, "That's what insurance is for." But if I messed up, there was no room for error. Now I saw the truth, and it hurt more than the debt. When I was younger, I once asked Mom if I could have a secondhand laptop for school. She didn't yell or say no in a harsh way. She just reminded me, "We're not made of money." It wasn't that my family hated me. In some ways, that would have been easier to handle. The truth was, they didn't see me as someone who could be hurt. I think they believed I was too strong to break. Maybe that's why they thought it was okay to use my name, my credit, and my identity to take out a huge loan. Maybe they believed I could handle it if things went wrong. But something inside me had changed. It wasn't anger. It wasn't revenge. It was something clearer than that. I finally saw everything for what it really was. I opened my laptop and called the bank. Asked them to send me all the loan documents they had. The woman on the phone was kind and professional. She had no idea that the file she sent would change everything for me. When the email came, I opened the PDF. I stared at the pages on my screen. There it was, my full name, my birthday, my personal details, and even my signature. But something wasn't right. It wasn't my signature. It looked almost exactly like mine. Whoever wrote it had clearly practiced. Maybe they traced it, maybe they copied it over and over. But they couldn't copy the little things. The way I always paused slightly when writing the letter T, or the way the Q in Han tilted slightly upward. This signature was smooth and confident. Mine had always been more careful, more unsure. Looking at it felt strange, like I was staring at a version of myself I didn't recognize. It was close enough to fool the bank, close enough to pass legal checks. But it didn't fool me. I knew who wrote it. I knew it had to be Jacqueline. But I didn't call her. I didn't send a message to my parents. I didn't ask them why or how they could do this to me. I didn't yell or cry or beg. I just started gathering evidence. I looked through everything I had. Old tax forms, doctor forms, student loan paperwork I had co-signed when Dad lost his job. I opened every folder I had kept over the last 11 years. And there they were, so many forms with my signature. I had helped them again and again, without ever thinking I would be used like this. I printed copies of everything, my credit reports, identity checks, and a full list of accounts opened under my name. I had never owned a house, but here it was, a full mortgage contract from Liberty National Bank with my name on it. Signed, notarized, legally binding. All done behind my back. For days, I kept it all on my kitchen table, sorted into neat piles. It was my life on paper. Stolen, used, and now, finally, mine to take back. I was working on a school project, but it didn't feel like school anymore. It felt like survival. My mind wasn't focused. I was going through the motions, but inside I was falling apart. At work, my friend Lauren noticed something was wrong. During lunch, I had been staring at the wall for too long, not hearing anything around me. She gently pulled me aside and said, "You look like you're holding your breath." That simple sentence hit hard. She saw what I was trying to hide. For some reason, I told her everything. Maybe because she was one of the few people in my life who ever asked how I was doing and actually wanted to know the answer. She didn't tell me everything would be okay. She didn't try to fix it with empty words. Instead, she pulled out her phone, found a number, and handed it to me.
"Call this guy," she said.
"He's smart. And he doesn't get scared by messy family stuff." That's how I met Mr. Paul. He was older, maybe ex-military, with a serious face and a calm voice that didn't waste words. We met at a small cafe a few blocks from my apartment. No fancy office. No front desk. Just a man, a notepad, and a cup of black coffee. I handed him the papers I had gathered, proof of what had been done in my name. He flipped through everything without saying much, page by page. When he was done, he closed the folder, looked straight at me, and asked, "You understand what this is, right?" "I think so," I said quietly. "This is fraud and identity theft," he said. "At the very least." Hearing those words out loud made my heart tighten. I nodded slowly. "I don't want to ruin their lives," I told him. "I just want this fixed." "You're not ruining anyone's life," he replied. "You're taking back what's yours." Then he carefully explained what needed to be done. Step by step. File a police report. Write to the bank. Gather more evidence. Legally challenge the mortgage. Press charges if needed. "It's not going to be easy," he warned. "And once you start, there's no going back. It'll burn whatever bridge is left." I thought about that word, burn, as if the bridge between us still existed. As if I hadn't already been walking that road alone for years. Later that night, I went through an old box I hadn't opened since I moved in. Inside, I found a birthday card for my mom. Her handwriting was easy to recognize, round and flowing. The card said, "Happy 29th to our steady one. We don't say it enough, but you've always been our rock, our backup plan. We're so lucky to have you." Our backup plan. It was meant to sound sweet. I understand that now. But all I could feel was the truth behind it. They had always seen me as the strong one, the one who wouldn't say no. Quiet. Reliable. The plan they used when theirs fell apart. But I wasn't going to be their plan anymore. I was done. Thursday came quickly. Too quickly. I stood outside my parents' house, the one with the white window shutters and the cracked driveway. I held a folder in my purse, so tightly it felt like it might burn through the leather. I hadn't spoken to them all week. Not since I got the loan papers. Not since I sat in Mr. Paul's office and realized this wasn't just a family mistake. It was a crime. Still, I knocked. The door opened right away. My mother smiled wide and said, "Catherine, sweetheart." I was just about to take the roast out of the oven. Like everything was normal. Like nothing had happened. I stepped inside. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and onions just like it always did. Jacqueline, my sister, was curled up on the couch with her phone. An empty wine glass sat beside her. My dad was in his recliner watching football, calm and relaxed. No one looked at me for too long. It was like they didn't know, or didn't care, what I had learned. I stayed quiet during dinner. We had pot roast, mashed potatoes, and green beans with too much garlic. My mom talked about small things. Jacqueline complained about her neighborhood rules. Dad grunted at the TV. I waited. After the dishes were cleared, I finally spoke. "Hey, quick question," I said. 3 heads turned toward me. They looked calm. No stress. Just expecting one of my usual questions. Maybe about a car or bills. "Does anyone know anything about a mortgage with my name on it?" Silence. The kind of silence that makes the room feel heavy. Jacqueline's shoulders tensed. My mom's smile froze. My dad cleared his throat. I didn't move. I didn't look away. I waited. Finally, my mom spoke, softly, like we were just talking about a small bill. "Oh, honey, that's just some paperwork. Ruth needed help to qualify. You're not actually paying for anything. It's family." Jacqueline added, without looking up from the table, "You have good credit." "I don't. It's not fair if you won't help." Not fair. Like I was being mean for asking. Like they hadn't done anything wrong. Like this was normal. I looked at them. The woman who raised me, the sister I used to protect when she had nightmares, the father who once told me I was his calm during hard times. And I saw it clearly. They didn't think what they did was wrong. They thought it was expected. They believed I should be the one to carry the weight. Quietly. I nodded once. Slowly. My voice calm. "Thanks for explaining." Jacqueline relaxed and went back to her phone. My dad reached for the TV remote. My mom looked like she was finally at peace, like the problem had been handled. But none of them saw what had really changed. They didn't know they had lost me. I was still the same Catherine. Still quiet. Still the one who didn't cause trouble. I hadn't gone to my parents' house to fight. I went to listen, to give them a chance to tell the truth. But instead, they used that chance to explain why what they did was okay. They didn't say sorry. They just made excuses. The next morning, I went to the police station and filed a report. The officer who helped me looked tired, like he had dealt with many family problems before. He was kind but careful. When I handed him the folder that Mr. Paul helped me put together, he read through it slowly. With every page, his face grew more serious. "Are you sure you want to move forward with this?" he asked, not because he didn't believe me, but because he knew it would be hard. "If I don't," I said, "they'll just keep doing it." He nodded, stamped the papers, and made it official. That afternoon, I went to the post office and mailed a certified letter to Liberty National Bank. Inside, I included the police report, a formal letter to dispute the loan, and copies of my ID. I watched the postal worker slide the envelope into the tray like it was nothing. But to me, it was everything. It was the moment I drew a line. Quietly, but clearly. I didn't call my family. I didn't send a warning. No yelling, no drama. Just silence. For days went by. Then 5. Then a full week. No calls, no texts. Just the heavy feeling of waiting. Waiting for someone to notice. Waiting for the fallout. It came on a Tuesday evening, just after sunset. There was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and saw my mother standing there in her nicest coat, her face tight with a mix of anger and fear. I opened the door, but I didn't invite her in. She didn't wait. She stepped forward and hissed, "How could you? How dare you go to the police?" Her voice was sharp, but I could hear something else underneath. Panic. Not fear for me, but fear of what might happen next. Fear of being caught. I didn't say anything. "I trusted you to be understanding," she said. Jacqueline needed help. Family is supposed to stick together. "No," I said quietly. "Family asks. They don't steal." She blinked, shocked by how calm I was. "You've ruined everything," she snapped. "Do you even know how this makes us look?" I almost laughed. But I didn't. "I didn't ruin anything," I said. "I just stopped pretending it wasn't already broken." She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue more, but I was already closing the door. The latch clicked shut with a soft sound, but to me, it felt louder than shouting. That night, Jacqueline called me 15 times. She left 5 voicemails, each one more angry than the last. I deleted them all without listening. And the next morning, I finally felt free. I woke up to an email from Liberty National Bank. "We have suspended the mortgage loan pending further investigation," it said. There was a formal apology attached. They were now looking into the notary records and the signature files. My credit score was still damaged, but something had finally started to change. The truth was being seen. I called Mr. Paul. "They're taking it seriously," I told him. "They usually do," he replied. "Especially when you don't yell and just show them the facts." He was right. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't begged anyone to believe me. I just stood still and let the truth speak for itself. And somehow that was enough. In the weeks that followed, the silence from my family grew. No more texts. No more invites. No more messages saying I should be thankful for the family I had. They weren't trying to fix anything. They just missed the old version of me, the one who always said yes. But she wasn't there anymore. Instead, I started doing things I had forgotten I enjoyed. I walked to the farmer's market on weekends. I bought flowers for my kitchen table. I read books without checking my phone every 6 minutes. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted space and peace. And for the first time, I finally had both. Months passed. Spring arrived slowly. Trees began to bloom in soft pinks and yellows. It felt like the world was ready to start fresh, even if I wasn't sure I was. I kept things simple. I replied to emails from Mr. Paul. I signed more documents. I checked my credit report often, like it was a weather update I didn't trust yet. The case wasn't closed. The damage was still there. But something inside me had calmed down. My weekends became my own. I walked on trails. I joined a pottery class at the community center. I started volunteering at the local library every Saturday. Nothing big, but all of it was mine. Hours that didn't belong to anyone else. One morning, I was standing behind my small booth at a local art fair. I had filled the table with mugs and bowls I had made myself. They weren't perfect, but they were honest. A woman picked up a small cup labeled Reclamation. It was a little uneven, smooth in some parts, bumpy in others. She looked at me and asked, "Why did you name it that?" I gave a small smile and shrugged. "Because it wasn't supposed to exist," I said. "But it does." She smiled too, paid in cash, and walked away. That night, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea. For the first time in years, the silence around me felt peaceful. Not the silence of being forgotten, but the silence of being free. And that's when I saw them, my mother, my father, and Jacqueline. They were standing at the edge of the parking lot near my building. Not close, not far. Just waiting. Like they weren't sure whether to come forward or walk away. And for once, I didn't move. I remembered how Jacqueline's makeup was smudged. My dad's shirt was messy and untucked. My mom was holding her purse tightly, like it was the only thing she could hold on to. I walked down the stairs slowly. I wasn't in a rush, and I wasn't hiding. When they saw me, they stopped. "Catherine," my mom said softly. Her voice shook. "We made mistakes, but we're still family." Jacqueline stepped closer. "I just need help. Just for a little while. Please don't shut us out." But I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't want to yell. I just felt calm and quiet inside. Because I knew the truth. They weren't here because they loved me. They were here because they needed me again. I set my bag down and looked at each of them. Really looked. "I hope," I said gently, "that one day you understand what real family means." They stayed silent. "It's not something you can steal," I continued. "It's not something you can fake or ask for only when it suits you." I reached into my coat pocket and took out a manila envelope. Inside was a copy of the fake mortgage paper, the one with my name and their signatures. Across the top was a red stamp that said void. Behind that, I had also placed something else. An old birthday card. The one that said, "You've always been our backup plan." I handed the envelope to my mom. Her hands shook as she took it. "I'm not angry," I said quietly. "Not anymore." She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, but I didn't wait. I'm finally free, I said. And I'm not coming back. Then I turned around and walked away. My footsteps on the stairs felt louder than any argument, heavier than any words I could have shouted. At the top of the stairs, I stopped for a second. The wind lifted the edge of my coat. The sun was starting to go down, and long shadows stretched across the parking lot. I whispered to myself, not to them. Sometimes walking away is the loudest thing you can ever say. And I meant every word. They used my name like it belonged to them. But I took it back. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just left. And that silence? They couldn't ignore it. If you've ever been treated like the backup plan, you'll understand why I never looked back. Subscribe if you're done being quiet. Some truths aren't said to be forgiven. They're said to be remembered. The day I found out my sister took my college money, I was sitting at the kitchen table going through my financial aid papers. My acceptance letter to Harvard was right beside me. It had been my dream school since I was 13. I worked hard to get here, keeping a perfect GPA while doing 3 part-time jobs to help build up the savings account my parents had started for me when I was born. My name is Emma. That was the day I saw my family for who they truly were. What do you mean the account is empty? I asked my mom, my hand shaking as I held the bank statement. There should be over $50,000 in there. Mom didn't look up. She just stirred her coffee and said calmly, Lauren needed it more than you did. Honey, you're smart. You'll figure something out. I felt dizzy. Lauren needed my college money for what? Just then, my sister walked into the kitchen, dressed in expensive clothes I'd never seen before. A new iPhone stuck out of her Gucci bag. Oh my God, is this about the money? Lauren rolled her eyes. You're being so dramatic. I needed to make a name for myself before starting my influencer career. These days, image is everything. You used my college money on clothes and stuff? My voice cracked. Mom? Dad? You let her do this. Dad came in holding a newspaper. Sweetheart, your sister has a real chance at becoming famous online. It's an investment in her future. You can still go to community college. I felt like I'd been hit. An investment? What about my future? Lauren actually laughed. Please, like you could even handle Harvard. You should be thanking me for saving you from failure. Mom sighed and said, we always knew Lauren had something special. You're more practical. You'll do well anywhere. I stood up so fast my chair fell over. Practical? I worked 3 jobs and kept straight A's. That money was for my education. Oh, stop being selfish, Lauren snapped. I already have 20,000 followers. Once I make it big, I'll pay you back double. When did you take it? I asked. How long have you been lying to me? Mom and Dad looked at each other. Then Dad said quietly, we moved it into Lauren's account about 7 months ago. She had a solid plan. 7 months. I cut in. While I was working extra hours at the diner and applying for scholarships, Lauren was spending the money. She spun around, showing off her new outfit. Don't you think I look amazing? This is what success looks like, Emma. Something inside me snapped. I didn't say a word. I just walked to my room, opened my closet, and started packing. My hands were calm. My thoughts were clear. I could hear them talking in the kitchen. She'll get over it, Mom said. She always does. Should we check on her? Dad asked. Let her throw her little tantrum, Lauren replied. She's just jealous of my future. I zipped up my suitcase and went back to the kitchen. I'm leaving, I said. Don't be silly, Mom said with a smirk. Where would you even go? Anywhere but here. I took out my phone and called my friend Scott. Hey, can I stay with you for a while? Of course, he said right away. Are you okay? I'll explain when I get there. I hung up and looked at my family one last time. You know what's funny? I said. I always knew Lauren was your favorite, but I never thought you'd steal from me just to prove it. We didn't steal anything, Dad said. We just moved family money around. Save it, I said, walking to the door. I hope those followers are worth it, Lauren, because you paid for them with my trust and respect. Don't be so dramatic, Mom said. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being practical, remember? And practically speaking, I don't have a family anymore. I left, dragging my suitcase behind me. As I stepped onto the sidewalk, I heard Lauren yell, "You'll regret this when I'm famous." I didn't look back. All I had was $580.87 in my own account, a part-time job at a diner, and an acceptance letter to a school I couldn't afford anymore. But I also had something more important, a strong will to prove them all wrong. Scott was waiting outside his apartment when I got there, 30 minutes later. He took one look at me and knew something bad had happened. "Want to talk about it?" he asked, helping me carry my suitcase. I took a deep breath. "Yeah. But first, I need to figure out how to apply for student loans. I'm going to Harvard, with or without their help." Living in Scott's spare room wasn't how I pictured starting this chapter of my life. But it was still better than staying in that house. The first week was the hardest. I kept waking up confused, reaching for my old alarm clock, then remembering I wasn't home anymore. "You need to eat something," Scott said one morning, sliding a plate of scrambled eggs across the kitchen counter. "You've got that financial aid meeting at Harvard today." I moved the scrambled eggs around with my fork. What's the point? Even with loans and financial help, I'm still short by thousands. "We'll figure it out," Scott said, sitting next to me. "But you're not quitting. I watched you work so hard for 2 years. I'm not going to let your sister's shopping ruin your future." The financial aid officer's name was Jacqueline, and that afternoon, she changed my life. "Your case is unusual," she said while looking over my papers. "But it's not impossible. Tell me, Emma, how badly do you want to go to Harvard?" "More than anything," I said right away. "I'll work 3 jobs if I have to." Jacqueline smiled. "That won't be necessary. We have a work-study program in my department. It won't cover everything, but with loans and a partial scholarship, I think we can make this happen. The only thing is, you'll need to take fewer classes. It may take 3 years instead of 4. "I'll take it," I said without thinking. "I don't care if it takes 7 years." That evening, I picked up an extra shift at the diner to celebrate. It felt strange to celebrate by working more, but I was happy to have a chance at all. While I was refilling coffee cups, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lauren. "OMG sis. Just hit 25K followers. Told you it was a good investment. Miss you." I deleted it without replying. Months passed. I got used to my new routine, classes in the morning, work study in the afternoon, diner shifts at night. Scott's spare room became my little home, filled with used furniture I'd bought from yard sales. One evening, as we ate takeout, Scott said, "You should see their Facebook pages. Lauren's influencer thing isn't really working. Your dad's business isn't doing great either." "I don't want to know," I said, focusing on my noodles. "They're not my problem anymore." But that night, I ended up looking anyway. Lauren's follower count had stopped growing. Her latest posts were just ads for weird weight loss teas. Mom's usual cheerful posts had turned more serious, talking about tough times and having faith. The next morning, during our work-study shift, Jacqueline saw me yawn. "Late night?" she asked, handing me a pile of files to sort. "Just thinking too much," I said. Then I paused. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How do you know when you've made the right decision?" Jacqueline put down her coffee. "Is this about your family?" I nodded slightly. "Emma," she said gently, "you're not the first student I've met whose family let them down. But you're one of the few who used that pain to push forward. The right choice isn't always the easy one. Sometimes it hurts, but it helps you grow." I looked down. "I just feel lost sometimes. I feel like I'm floating with no anchor," I said. "Then build new anchors," Jacqueline replied calmly. "Make your own support system. Look around you, you've already started." She was right. With Scott's constant support, Jacqueline's guidance, and my own stubborn will, I was slowly building something new, something that was mine. That night at the diner, I overheard 3 customers talking about a new tech company that was changing financial software. They said the company was hiring entry-level programmers. "Excuse me," I said, setting down their coffee. I couldn't help overhearing. "I'm studying computer science at Harvard." 3 weeks later, I left the diner for a paid internship at that company. It paid double what I earned at the diner. When I told Scott, He took me out to celebrate. To new beginnings, he said, raising his glass. And to old friends, I added, clinking my glass with his. I wouldn't have made it without you. Come on, he laughed. You did all the hard work. I just gave you a couch. My phone buzzed. Another message from Lauren. Mom and Dad are worried. At least let them know you're okay. I turned off my phone and looked at Scott. Tell me about your day instead. As we laughed and talked, I realized Jacqueline had been right. I was building new anchors. I was creating my own kind of family. And for the first time since that day in the kitchen, I felt truly okay. What I didn't know was that in a few years, the same people who once laughed at my dreams would come asking for my help. But that's a different story, one that proves karma always arrives right on time. 3 years after I left my childhood home, I stood on Harvard's graduation stage. My heart raced as they called my name. I had turned that internship into a full-time job and still managed to graduate with honors, even if it took me longer. Emma, Scott yelled from the crowd, whistling. Jacqueline was beside him, smiling proudly like a parent. Later, at a small dinner Scott had organized, Jacqueline handed me an envelope. Open it, she said, almost jumping with excitement. Inside was a job offer, Director of Student Financial Services at Harvard. But this is your job, I said, surprised. It was my job, she replied. I'm moving to the dean's office, and I recommended you. You've lived it, Emma. You understand what students like you need. Who better to help them? I looked at the salary number and almost choked on my drink. It was more money than I ever thought I'd make, and I still planned to keep my tech job part-time. Speech. Scott called, raising his glass. To the 2 people who became my real family. I'm the one who made it, I said quietly. The one who believed in me when my own family didn't. Speaking of family, Scott said gently, sliding his phone across the table. You might want to see this. It was a local news article. McCoy Technologies files for bankruptcy. The headline read. That was my father's company, something he once cared about more than anything. Now it was failing. The article talked about growing debt and poor management. There's more, Scott said. He showed me Lauren's Instagram. Her follower count had dropped a lot. Her latest post was a video of her crying. She said she got scammed by a fake modeling agency and had lost thousands of dollars, probably the last of what used to be my college fund. Are you okay? Jacqueline asked softly. Honestly, I said, handing the phone back to Scott. I feel nothing. They made their choice 3 years ago. The next morning, I walked into my new office at Harvard, ready to start my first day. By lunchtime, I had already helped 2 students figure out their financial aid. As I was working on another case, my office phone rang. Emma, it's Mom. I froze. How did you get this number? Your old friend Madison works in administration, she said quickly. Please don't hang up. We need to talk. We needed to talk 3 years ago, I said coldly. Before you let Lauren take away my future. She didn't steal it. Mom started, then stopped. Look, things are bad right now. Your father's business is gone. Lauren's investments failed. We're losing the house. That sounds like a personal problem, I replied. We're family, she said softly. I laughed. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't call your dreams silly. Family doesn't treat you like you don't matter. We made a mistake, she said quickly. We know that now. Please, can we just meet? Have dinner? Your father and Lauren will be there. We want to fix things. I was about to say no when I remembered something Jacqueline had told me years ago. Sometimes the right choice is the one that hurts, but helps you grow. Fine, I said at last. Friday night. Send me the details. After I hung up, I called Scott. They want to meet, I told him. Are you going? He asked. Yes, I said, taking a deep breath. But not for them. For me. I want them to see what they lost. That evening, I stood in front of the mirror, fixing my blazer. The woman staring back at me wasn't the scared girl who left home with just a suitcase. She looked strong, confident, and complete. My phone buzzed with a message from Lauren. Can't wait to see you, sis. We have so much to catch up on. I thought about how many times I had dreamed of this moment, the chance to show them they were wrong about me. But now that it was real, I understood something important. I didn't need their approval anymore. "You don't have to go," Scott said. When I called Scott again, he said, "I know you're going." I said, grabbing my car keys. "But I want to. I'm also curious to see what they think making things right means." "Want me to come with you?" he offered. "No," I replied, thinking about the folder I had prepared. It held old bank statements, certificates of my achievements, and my new business cards. I can handle this. As I drove to the restaurant, I thought about how life sometimes comes full circle. 3 years ago, they had laughed at my dreams. Now they were the ones needing my help. I noticed the irony, but I wasn't the same girl they had once hurt. I was stronger now, smarter, and I had a feeling this dinner was going to be very interesting. The restaurant they picked wasn't as fancy as the ones they used to go to. I saw them right away. Mom was nervously fixing her fake handbag, Dad looked tired in an old suit, and Lauren was picking at her chipped nail polish. "Emma." Lauren stood up, arms open for a hug. I didn't hug her back. Her fancy clothes were gone. Now she wore cheap, basic ones. "Let's skip the act," I said, sitting down. "You didn't invite me for a family catch-up." Mom looked sad. "Can't we just talk first? You look so different." "Success does that," I said, placing my folder on the table. "So, who wants to begin?" "Dad, how's the business?" He winced. "It's been tough. The market." "Filed for bankruptcy," I said, finishing the sentence. "Lauren, how's the influencer life?" She stared at her water. "That's not fair." "Neither was stealing my college fund," I replied. "But here we are." "Emma," Mom said gently, "we know we made mistakes, but we're still family." "Family?" I opened my folder and took out an old bank statement. "Let's talk about family. Here's the account you emptied, $52,000. My entire future." "We can explain," Dad began. "I'm not done," I said, pulling out my Harvard acceptance letter. "Remember this? The one you said I couldn't handle? Well, guess what? I slid my diploma across the table. I graduated with honors. And I worked 2 jobs while doing it." Lauren's eyes widened when she saw my business card, Director of Student Financial Services. "You work in tech too?" she asked. "That's right. Turns out I'm not just practical. I'm actually very successful." I leaned back. "So tell me, why am I really here?" Mom started crying. "We're losing everything, Emma. The house, the cars. Your dad's business is gone." "The modeling agency scammed me," Lauren added quietly. "All my followers left when I couldn't keep up the image." Dad cleared his throat. "We need help. A loan. Just until we get back on our feet." I didn't say anything. I let the silence sit. A waiter came by, but I waved him away. "How much?" I asked. $80,000, Dad mumbled. "To keep the house and pay off urgent debts." I took out my phone and opened my banking app. I could transfer it right now. "I have the money." Their faces lit up with hope. "But before I do anything," I continued, "I want you to explain something to me. That day in the kitchen, when you told me I wasn't good enough for Harvard, did you actually believe that?" "We were wrong," Mom whispered. "So wrong." "That's not what I asked." I put my phone away. "Did you believe it?" Lauren looked up, her voice barely a whisper. "I did. I thought I was better than you, that I deserved more. But now I know I was just selfish and foolish." She wiped her tears. "I ruined your dreams for some likes on Instagram." Dad reached across the table. "Please, sweetheart. If we lose the house, your mom and sister have nowhere to go." I stood up and picked up my folder. "I'll think about it. That's it." Lauren's voice cracked. "You're just leaving?" "Unlike some people," I said, putting on my coat. "I don't make big money decisions on a whim. I'll let you know in 4 days." "Wait," Mom called out as I turned toward the door. "What happened to you? You used to be so kind." I stopped and looked at them. I grew up. I learned that the people who are supposed to love you the most can sometimes hurt you the worst. And I learned I'm worth more than you ever believed. We know that now, Lauren said softly. No, I corrected her. You know you need me now. That's not the same. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Scott. How'd it go? I typed back. They need $80,000. They're desperate. He replied right away. What are you going to do? I smiled, thinking about the document I had asked my lawyer to prepare the day before, just in case. They thought they were asking for a loan. But I had a different plan, one that would make them face what they did to me, step by step, dollar by dollar. They wanted help? Fine. But this time, it would be on my terms. I started my car, already thinking through the details of the agreement in my mind. In 2 days, they would find out exactly who their practical daughter had become. 2 days later, I walked into my lawyer's office.
My family was already sitting there.
Their faces lit up when they saw me, but their smiles faded fast when they saw the thick stack of papers in my hands. What's this? Dad asked, looking at the document. My terms, I said, sitting down and sliding a copy to each of them. You want $80,000? Here's how you'll get it. Mom opened the folder, her hand shaking. A contract? But we're family. Family didn't stop you from stealing from me, I said calmly. I nodded at my lawyer. Please explain the terms. He cleared his throat. The $80,000 will be given in monthly payments of $10,000, but only if all conditions are followed. Conditions? Lauren interrupted. What conditions? First, I said, Lauren needs to get a real job. No more influencing or modeling. A real 9-to-5 job. And every month, she must put half of her salary into a scholarship fund I'm creating for students whose families left them with nothing. Lauren's face turned red. That's not fair. Second, I continued, Dad has to take a financial class and work with a court-appointed bankruptcy advisor. No more risky business deals. Dad opened his mouth to argue, but I raised my hand to stop him. Third, Mom must volunteer 12 hours a week at the university's financial aid office, helping students figure out how to pay for college when their own families don't help. This is crazy, Mom said. We came here asking for help, not punishment. No, I said firmly. You came asking for money. I'm offering a second chance. There's more, my lawyer added, turning the page. The house will be sold. A smaller, cheaper home will be bought using some of the money. The rest will go to pay off debts. Sell the house, Dad shouted. That's our home. No, I said, leaning forward. It's a symbol of pride you can't afford anymore. Just like my college fund was supposed to be protected, but you took it anyway. Lauren kept reading the contract. Her face went pale. It says, here we have to go to family therapy. All of us. Every month. I met their shocked faces. You want to talk about being a family? Then let's do it with a professional. Let's talk about what really happened 3 years ago. And if we say no? Mom whispered. Then you get nothing. I said, standing up. You have 2 hours to decide. I'll be in the coffee shop downstairs. Scott was waiting for me there. How did they take it? He asked. Exactly how I expected, I said, stirring my coffee. They thought I'd just hand over the money and forget everything they did. Will they sign it? They don't have a choice, I replied. The bank is taking the house next month, and Lauren's credit is ruined from her failed influencer dreams. 50 minutes later, my lawyer called. They're ready to talk. When I returned, they were sitting close together, looking tired and defeated. Before you sign, I said, there's one thing I want you to understand. This isn't revenge. It's about being responsible. It feels like punishment, Lauren said quietly. Really? I said. To me, it feels like a chance. A chance you never gave me. I pulled out my pen. I'll sign first. To show I'm serious about all of it. Even the therapy. Dad picked up his pen next. We really don't have a choice, do we? You always have a choice, I said. Just like you had one 3 years ago. Then I watched as he signed. The difference was, this time, they finally understood the cost of what they'd done. I'm giving you a chance to make the right choice, I said. Mom signed next, her tears falling onto the paper. Lauren signed last. Her hand shook, but she still did it. What now? She asked. Now, I said, gathering the contracts. You start over, just like I had to. The first $10,000 will be sent tomorrow. Lauren, I added, I've set up 3 job interviews for you next week. Dad, your first financial class starts Sunday. And the therapy? Mom asked. First session is Friday at 5 p.m. Don't be late. I handed each of them a signed copy. Welcome to your fresh start. Try not to waste it this time. As they walked out, Lauren stayed behind. Why are you really doing this? She asked. You could have just said no. I thought about the scared girl I used to be, the one packing her bags with shaking hands. I thought of Scott offering me a couch, of Jacqueline guiding me, of working late nights and waking up early for classes. Because someone once told me, I said, that the right choice isn't always the easy one. I looked her in the eyes. Sometimes it's the one that hurts, but helps you grow. She nodded slowly. I could see she understood. After she left, I pulled out my phone and texted Scott. They signed. All of them. He replied right away. You're either the kindest person I know or the smartest. I smiled. Maybe I was both. The first family therapy session was just as uncomfortable as I thought it would be. We sat in a circle. No one spoke at first. The room felt heavy with silence. Dr. Joyce, our therapist, watched us patiently. Let's start with the day Emma found out her college fund was gone, she said. Do we have to? Lauren asked, shifting in her seat. Yes, I said firmly. We do. I remember thinking I deserved more, Lauren said after a long pause. I had this big dream to be famous. I thought I needed the money more than Emma. And now? Dr. Joyce asked. Now I'm a junior assistant, Lauren said, her voice breaking. I make coffee for people Emma's age, people already doing what I hope to do. I wasted everything. Her money.
My time.
My future. Mom reached for a tissue. We allowed it, she said softly. We really thought that I wasn't worth investing in. I finished. That I was just the practical one, the backup plan. No, Dad said quickly. We never thought. Really? I said, pulling out my phone. I played the video I had secretly recorded 3 years ago. Their own voices filled the room. Lauren has that special something. You're more practical. Like you could handle Harvard anyway. Dr. Joyce watched their faces closely. That must have been hard to hear again, she said. I listen to it sometimes, I admitted. When I start doubting myself, it reminds me how far I've come. Lauren broke down crying. I was awful. I can't believe I laughed at your dreams. Why do you think you did that, Lauren? Dr. Joyce asked gently. I was scared of failing, Lauren blurted out. Emma always knew what she wanted. She worked hard and had real goals. I thought if I became famous quickly, it would prove I was special too. The therapy session continued, slowly uncovering years of jealousy, hurt, and wrong choices. By the end, we were all emotionally drained. In the parking lot, Lauren walked up to me. I got my first paycheck yesterday, she said. I know, I replied. The scholarship fund received your deposit. It felt good, actually earning something real, she said quietly. Then she paused. One of my coworkers said their IT department is hiring. I thought, maybe I could take some coding classes. I looked at her, trying to see if the old, spoiled Lauren was still there. But she looked different now, more humble, maybe even serious. The community college has great night classes, I said at last. I can help you apply. The next week, Dad called and asked, would you mind coming to my financial class? There's something I want to say. I found him standing at the front of the room, hands slightly shaking. This is my daughter Emma, he told the other struggling business owners. 3 years ago, I used her college fund to pay for my other daughter's influencer dreams. I lost everything, my business, our home, and most of all, my daughter's trust. Don't make the same mistake. Don't let your pride blind you to what truly matters. Later, over coffee, he showed me a new budget plan. The advisor said if we stick to this, we can be debt-free in 2 years, he said. That's great, Dad. He looked down and said quietly, "Emma,
I'm sorry.
not just for the money, but for not believing in you." Mom took longer to change. She was more stubborn. But after a month of volunteering in the financial aid office, she began to see things differently. "I met a girl today," she told me during our next therapy session. "She reminded me of you, smart, hardworking. But her parents didn't think girls needed college." She wiped her eyes. "I helped her find scholarships, loans, and a work-study job. And I kept thinking how no one did that for you. How we did the opposite." "Did she get the money she needed?"
I asked.
Mom smiled, with tears in her eyes.
Yes.
"She starts next semester." Dr. Joyce leaned forward. "How did that feel? Helping her?" "Like I finally did what a mother should do," Mom said. "I supported someone's dreams instead of tearing them down." That evening, as I drove home, Scott called to check in. "How is therapy?" he asked. "Surprising," I said. "They're actually trying, really trying." "And how do you feel about that?" I thought about Lauren's coding classes, Dad's apology, and Mom's slow change. "Hopeful," I said. "Careful, but hopeful. And proud," I added. "Not just because I made it through everything, but because I gave them the chance to grow, too." I pulled into my driveway. "Even if it took a contract to get here, it was worth it." "That's because you're not just the practical one anymore," Scott said. "You're the strong one, the wise one." He was right. I wasn't just surviving now, I was thriving. And somehow, I was also helping my family grow too. This time on my terms. 7 months into our agreement, I sat in the audience at Lauren's community college. She was giving a presentation for her beginner programming class. Her hands shook a little as she showed the app she had created, but her voice stayed steady. "And that's how I built my first budgeting app," she said. "It was inspired by my own struggles with handling money." During the question and answer part, someone asked about her past as an influencer. "Actually," Lauren said, looking at me in the crowd, "that wasn't a real career. That was me taking my sister's future because I was too scared to build my own. But this, learning to code, working, creating something useful, this is my real career." After the presentation, I met her in the hallway. "So," she asked nervously, "what did you think?" "The code still needs work," I answered honestly. "But the idea is strong. I thought maybe it could help college students avoid the same mistakes I made," she said, hugging her laptop. "Would you help me improve it?" Before I could reply, Mom and Dad walked up. They had arrived late. "Sorry we missed the presentation," Dad said. "My financial class went over time. But look." He held up a certificate. "I finished the course. I helped 3 students get full scholarships today," Mom added. One of them cried. I used to think tears like that were too much, but now. "How about we talk about Lauren's app over dinner?" I offered. "I know a great Thai place nearby." At the restaurant, Lauren laid out her notes. Dad looked over the cost estimates for building the app. "This could work," he said. "Start small. With the right plan." "No more shortcuts," Lauren said firmly. "No quick money tricks. I want to do this the right way, slow and steady. Emma, that's why I need you. Not for shortcuts, but real help." Something changed in me at that moment. "Okay," I said. "But we do this my way. Real development steps, testing, a slow launch. Deal?" She smiled wide.
Deal.
"Thank you, sis." Later that week, during therapy, Dr. Joyce noticed the change. "Lauren is asking for help instead of taking," she said. "Emma is guiding instead of judging. That's real progress." "I've been thinking," Mom said suddenly, "about the scholarship fund. What if we all added to it? Not just Lauren's share? We could call it the Second Chance Fund," Dad said. "For students who need one. For students who need help starting over," Dad added. I felt tears in my eyes. "You'd really do that?" "We owe you so much more than money," Lauren said quietly. "We owe you a whole future, one we tried to take from you. Maybe now we can help other students get the chances we almost stole." Dr. Joyce smiled. "Emma, how does that make you feel?" "Like I matter," I said softly. "Like you finally understand how much education means, how much dreams mean." After the session, Dad pulled me aside. The house goes on the market next week. Are you okay with that? No, he admitted. But I'm learning that being okay doesn't always matter as much as doing what's right. We found a smaller place, closer to Lauren's school, your mom's volunteer work, and your new job. He gave a small smile. Being a junior accountant at 70 wasn't my plan. But it's honest work, and it means something now. That night, I met Scott for our weekly dinner. You look deep in thought, he said. Lauren asked for help with her app today. She actually asked, and I wanted to help. I really wanted to. I pushed my food around. Is that strange after everything? No, Scott said. That's growth. For both of you. My phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. Reviewed your coding suggestions. They make so much sense now. Thank you for being patient with me. Coffee tomorrow to go over the next module. As I typed back, yes, something hit me. The contract I wrote 7 months ago wasn't just changing them. It was changing me too. The walls I'd built to protect myself were slowly turning into bridges. You know what's funny? I told Scott. I made that contract to make them see what they did to me. But watching them actually do the work, it's healing something in me too. That's because you're giving them what they didn't give you, Scott said. A real chance to be better. I thought about Lauren's app, Dad's new job, and Mom helping students every week. Small steps, but real ones. Honest changes, not fake ones to impress me. Maybe that's what real family does, I said. Not just love each other, but help each other grow. The final payment from the contract hit my account on a Saturday morning. I stared at the notification, thinking of the scared girl I used to be, leaving home with nothing but a suitcase and determination. Now, I was sitting in my office at Harvard. I pulled out the contract that had changed everything. Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from Lauren. Check the App Store, we're live. I opened the store and found it right away. Fresh Start Finance, building better financial futures. Under the description were 2 names, Lauren, lead developer, and me, project advisor. 500 downloads already, Scott said, poking his head into my office. Not bad for day 1. Did you see the dedication page? He leaned over my shoulder as I scrolled. I tapped through the app. There was written in plain text. To my sister Emma, who taught me that real success comes from hard work, not shortcuts. Thank you for my second chance.
The door opened again.
Mom walked in, wearing her volunteer badge and carrying a stack of papers. 2 more full scholarships approved, she said proudly. The Second Chance Fund is really helping. You should see the students' faces when they find out they can actually go to college. Dad came behind her, fixing his tie. The quarterly report is ready, he said. So far, we've helped 29 students. I looked at them closely, really looked. Mom's pride wasn't about looks or image anymore. It was about making a difference. Dad's confidence came from steady, honest work, not risky business deals. And Lauren? She had traded social media filters for computer code. She was building something real. Family therapy in 40 minutes, Lauren reminded us. Dr. Joyce had said it was time to talk about ending our sessions. Are we ready for that? Mom asked. I think we are, I said, surprising even myself. Look at us, Lauren laughed. We're actually talking, really listening. Back then, Dad said, we couldn't even look at each other. We were all carrying shame. I felt like I failed as a father. I was ashamed of what I did, Lauren added. And I was guilty for letting it happen, Mom said. And I was angry, I added. So angry I needed a contract just to get you to change. That contract saved us, Mom said softly. Not just financially. It made us face who we were. Scott cleared his throat. Speaking of facing things, Emma, should we tell them? I stood up. We're getting married. Small ceremony next month. Oh, honey. Mom stepped forward, then paused. Would it be okay if I helped plan it? For a second, that old fear came back. Would she take over and make it all about appearances again? But I looked at her and saw something different. Honest hope in her eyes. Actually, I said, I'd really like that. Lauren wiped her eyes. So, Does this mean we're really a family again? We're something even better, I said. A family that learned from our mistakes. One that grew stronger from what we went through. When we arrived at Dr. Joyce's office, she greeted us warmly. So, you're here to talk about ending the sessions? Yes, I said. The contract is complete. All the terms were met. Every payment made. And how do you feel about that? I looked around at the people sitting beside me, not just my family by name, but my real family, rebuilt from the hurt and mistakes of the past. I feel like we don't need a contract anymore. They proved who they are, Dad said. By keeping promises, Mom added. By earning trust again, Lauren finished. Dr. Joyce smiled. Then I have one final question, Emma. What would you do if they needed help again? I'd help, I said without hesitation. Not because I have to. I trust who they are now, I said. And we'd accept help if we needed it, Lauren added, but only after trying to fix things ourselves first. Dr. Joyce nodded. That's how I know you're ready. Later at dinner, Scott lifted his glass. To the strongest family I know. To second chances, Dad said. To doing the hard work, Mom added. To building something real, Lauren said with a smile. I looked around at them, the family that had once fallen apart, now healing, and raised my glass too, to growing together. As we ate, talked, and laughed, I thought about the contract that started it all. It was still filed safely in my office.
Back then, we needed that contract.
We needed the rules and the consequences to force us to face the truth. But now, we didn't need it anymore. What we had was stronger than any paper. We had trust, built from nothing. We had understanding, earned through effort. We had love, tested, proven, and real. We had finally become the family we should have been all along. And that meant more than any college fund ever could. Ready to go home? Scott asked as we finished dinner. I looked at my family, my true family, and smiled. I am home. I was born because of a mistake. My mom had a careless night with someone she barely knew. If my grandparents hadn't pushed my parents to get married, I probably wouldn't even be here. When I was born, it wasn't a happy moment. It felt more like a punishment for them. My dad never tried to hide how much he hated having me around. There goes my youth, he would mumble when he looked at me, like I ruined some amazing life he wanted. My mom didn't hit me or yell, but she didn't hug me or say anything kind either. To them, I wasn't really their child. I was just a weight they had to carry. The first 11 years of my life were all about one rule. Don't be a problem. I learned to walk quietly, talk softly, and stay out of sight. But no matter how careful I was, just being there seemed to annoy my dad. Then one day, everything changed. Lori was born. She was like a miracle to my parents. The golden child. They cried happy tears, hugged her, and celebrated. From then on, I was the outsider, the helper, the forgotten one. Kayla, watch your sister. Kayla, be quiet. Lori is sleeping. Kayla, why can't you be more like Lori? Lori got brand new clothes. I got old ones from people we barely knew. Lori had birthday cakes. I got a candle and a piece of bread. Lori got hugs. I got silence. Once I asked my mom, did I do something wrong? She just sighed and said nothing, like I didn't even exist. I got used to it. I stopped hoping for more. But there was one thing I never stopped doing, dreaming. I learned how to fade into the background. If I stayed quiet enough, if I never caused trouble, maybe, just maybe, I'd find peace. I thought if I disappeared, maybe my dad wouldn't look at me with hate. Maybe my mom wouldn't sigh every time I talked. But no matter what I did, I was still just a shadow, only there to serve the family. When I was 8, my mom gave me a mop and said, from now on, you'll clean the whole house. At first, it was just wiping tables and sweeping floors. But soon, I was scrubbing, washing clothes, doing dishes, and handling any small chore they needed. By the time I was 10, my mom hardly did anything herself. Kayla, the laundry's not done. Kayla, the kitchen floor is dirty. Clean it again. Kayla, make dinner. Just like that, I became the family's maid, but I never got paid or thanked. While I worked, Lori lived a very different life. My mom bought her nice dresses, ordered cakes for her birthdays, and gave her new toys or dolls whenever she asked for them in a store. I remember once asking for a new backpack because mine was falling apart. My mom looked at me like I was crazy. "Your backpack still works," she said. A week later, Lori got a shiny new pink backpack with glitter. But the worst part wasn't the things I didn't get. It was how my mom looked at Lori with love. How my dad smiled and patted her on the back when she got good grades. And me? I could clean the whole house and no one would say thank you. I could cook dinner every night and no one would even ask if I had eaten. Even though I felt alone, there was one thing that made me feel like I mattered: cooking. The first time I cooked something by myself, I was 9. It was just scrambled eggs, but I still remember how happy I felt watching the yolk melt on the toast. Over time, cooking became the one thing that made me feel good. I learned to cook by watching my mom in the kitchen. I remembered every move she made and tried things out whenever I could. By the time I was 13, I could cook a full meal on my own. I still remember the first time I made lasagna for dinner. When Lori took her first bite, she said, "Wow, this is so good." My mom smiled, but not at me. She looked at my dad and said, "I think I made it better this time. Don't you agree?" I wanted to shout, "I made it." But then I remembered. I was just a shadow. And shadows don't get credit. I held back my anger and thought it's okay. One day, I'll find a place where I belong. A place where I don't have to wait in the dark, hoping someone sees me. I always knew my role in the family. I was the quiet one, the invisible one, the outsider. But that didn't mean I didn't have dreams. I wanted to be a chef. Not just someone who cooked in a family kitchen, but someone who made food people would remember. After school, I watched cooking shows, wrote down recipes, and practiced whenever I had time. I dreamed of opening my own restaurant someday. A place where people came because they loved my food. A place where I wasn't just a shadow anymore. But when I said my dream out loud, they laughed at me. "Open a restaurant? Who do you think you are, Gordon Ramsay?" my dad said, shaking his head. "Restaurants fail all the time. People might eat your food once and forget it the next day." "Kayla, be realistic," my mom added, like I had said I wanted to fly to Mars. "Get a normal job like accounting, office work, or teaching. Something safe." And then, as always, Lori made it worse. "You could work at Wendy's. They need cooks too," she said, and they all laughed. I clenched my teeth and swallowed the pain. I didn't know why, but even with all the mocking, my dad still agreed to pay for my cooking school. But he made it clear. "This is all you're getting from me. Don't expect anything else. The house, the money, everything goes to Lori." I thought I would feel hurt, but instead I felt relief. I didn't need anything from them. I just needed a chance. And I was about to get one. Culinary school was the first place where I truly felt like I belonged. No one ignored me or compared me to Lori. There, your talent was judged by the food you made, not by your name. I stayed up late practicing. I worked on my knife skills, learned how flavors work together, and pushed myself every day. For the first time, I felt like I mattered. I dreamed that after graduation, I would find a steady job and slowly open my own restaurant. But that dream fell apart fast. I had no savings, no place to stay, so I had no choice but to go back home. The moment I stepped inside, I knew nothing had changed. "You're a chef now, right?" my mom said with a fake sweet voice. "That means you'll cook every day from now on. It's not like you have anything more important to do, right?" Lori laughed. "Yeah, at least now you can be useful to the family." I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. I quietly hung my culinary diploma on the wall of my old bedroom, a small room with faded wallpaper and the same worn-out bed I had since I was a kid. I had come so far only to end up right where I started. But I promised myself, I won't stay here forever. One day, I'll leave for good and never come back. I thought life would change after finishing culinary school. But no, I was still Kayla. Still invisible. Now, also the family's unpaid chef. Every day, I worked long hours at a small restaurant. The pay was low, but at least I was getting experience. My shift started early, and ended late. But even after all that, when I got home, my mom always had chores waiting for me. "You have a job now, but don't forget to clean the house," she would say. I almost laughed if it wasn't so cruel. I had been doing chores since I was a little girl. Lori, on the other hand, still didn't do anything. Lori, the golden child, was treated like a princess. My parents gave her anything she wanted. When she started her last year of high school, my dad pulled into the driveway with a brand new white car. He smiled and called for her to come outside. "My little girl deserves the best," he said, handing her the keys. I stood there, staring at the shiny new car under the sunlight. A heavy feeling rose in my chest. When I was Lori's age, I never even dreamed of owning a car. I walked or borrowed an old bike to get to work. Once I mentioned saving for a used car, and my parents just laughed. "With what money? You can't even afford rent," they said. I wanted to move out, but with the little money I made, renting a place on my own wasn't possible. I tried to save, but my mom always found a reason to take money from me. "You live in this house, so you have to help with the bills," she would say. It didn't matter that I cooked every meal and cleaned the house every day. I still had to give them part of my pay, like I was just a renter no one wanted. That Christmas, I promised myself I would do something to feel like I mattered. I saved for months, trying to buy gifts for everyone. But then I saw the fancy presents my parents got for Lori, a brand new iPhone, sparkling jewelry, and I knew I couldn't match that. So I bought lottery tickets. Not the cheap ones, but tickets for the biggest jackpot of the year. I thought maybe, just maybe, something lucky could happen for once in this family. On Christmas morning, I put the envelopes on the table. Each one had a ticket inside. But when they opened them, no one smiled. No one looked happy. Instead, they made fun of me. "Lottery tickets?" My dad raised an eyebrow. "Are you serious, Kayla? Couldn't you think of something useful?" My mom shook her head. "What a waste." Lori laughed and threw her envelope aside. "Wow, you're so poor you couldn't even buy a real gift." They all laughed. I just sat there, frozen. Then my mom looked at me with a fake sweet smile and said, "Now that I think about it, since Kayla didn't get us anything special, she shouldn't expect any gifts either. That seems fair, right?" They all nodded, like it made perfect sense. I held the edge of the table, my nails digging into my palm. Then, without saying a word, I stood up and grabbed the lottery tickets back from their hands. "You know what?" I said, my voice shaking with anger. "I'll keep these. Merry Christmas." I didn't wait for anyone to speak. I stormed out of the house, feeling like I couldn't breathe. Christmas was supposed to be a time for family, but I had never felt so alone. A few days later, I had almost forgotten about the lottery tickets. I had stuffed them into my coat pocket and thrown them on a chair in my room. I didn't think anything would come of it. Then one morning during my break at the restaurant, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't know. I almost didn't answer, thinking it was a spam call. But the voice on the other end made me freeze. "Hello, is this Kayla Harrison? This is Kathy from the state lottery office. I'm calling to let you know you're holding a winning jackpot ticket." I sat up straight. "What did you say?" "Your ticket matched all the numbers from the Christmas draw. After taxes, your prize is $2,500,000. The room spun. I blinked, holding my phone tight, trying to stay calm. $2,500,000. I had never dreamed of a number like that. As Kathy explained how to claim the prize, it started to feel real. This was my chance. I wanted to tell someone, but I had no close friends. No one to share the moment with. So, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I told my family. I walked into the kitchen while they were eating dinner. My voice was still shaking as I said, "I won the lottery. $2,500,000. The room went quiet. My mom and dad froze. Lori put her phone down, her eyes wide. Then she jumped up from her chair. "Wait. That was the ticket you were going to give to Mom. That means the money belongs to the family." A cold feeling ran through me. "No," I said. "You all didn't want them, remember?" "I took the tickets back," I said. My father slowly put down his fork and nodded. "Kayla, you live in this house. You should share the money with your family. It could really help us." My mother jumped in, her voice fake and sweet. Sweetheart, do you even know how to handle that much money? Your father, and I can keep it safe for you. I let out a bitter laugh. Don't act like you care. We both know that if I give you the money, I'll never see it again. Lori clenched her fists. You're so selfish. You owe this family. You've been living off us for years. Do you even think about who paid for food, rent, and bills? I gave a dry laugh. I owe you? I cleaned the house. I cooked every meal. I gave Mom my paychecks. And now that I've won something, suddenly I'm in debt to you. My father's face darkened. If you won't share the money, then you don't need to live here. I stared at him. What are you saying? My mother stood up, arms crossed, eyes cold. If you're not going to give us the money, then get out. Don't think you can stay here for free. You have money now. Take care of yourself. We've let you stay here long enough. Anger burned inside me, but at the same time, I felt something else. Relief. I looked at each of them and finally saw the truth. They had never really seen me as part of the family. I took a deep breath.
Fine.
I'll leave. No one tried to stop me. No one looked sorry. I went upstairs, packed my clothes in a bag, grabbed my documents and the winning ticket. As I stood at the front door, I paused. Thank you, I said, my voice calm and strong. Thanks to you, I finally know I don't belong here. Then I walked out and never looked back.
I had no home, no family.
But I had something more important, a chance to start over. I stepped out into the cold winter night, holding the small bag that carried everything I owned. I didn't have a clear plan, but I knew one thing for sure. I was never going back. My first stop was the lottery office. I needed to make sure the money was truly mine and that no one else could take it. When I signed the check for $2,500,000, I knew this wasn't just money. It was my escape, my fresh start. But I wasn't going to waste it. I wasn't the type to buy fancy cars or expensive clothes just to show off. I needed a real plan. I rented a small apartment just outside the city. It wasn't big or fancy, but it was mine, my own space for the first time ever. For the next few weeks, I spent hours each day in front of my laptop. I read everything I could about starting a restaurant, how to find a location, get permits, hire staff, choose suppliers, and market the business. I knew I couldn't just hope for success. I had to work smart. After searching for days, I found an old building in the center of town. It used to be a restaurant, but it had been empty for years. The air smelled damp, and the floors were broken, but I could see what it could become. When I met the landlord, he laughed. You want to turn this place into a restaurant? Good luck. But I didn't need luck. I needed hard work. I hired people to fix it up. I helped choose every tile, every light, every detail. I didn't just want to open a restaurant. I wanted to create a place that felt like home, for people who love food, for people who wanted to feel welcome. For months later, I stood in front of my restaurant, Kayla's Table. My name was on the sign. It was real. Opening day was the scariest day of my life. I didn't know if anyone would come. I didn't know if they'd like my food. But when the first customer walked in, placed their order, and smiled after their first bite, I knew I had done it. Day by day, more people came. Word spread about the little place where the chef made every dish with care and love. I created my own special recipes, hosted food events, and used social media to get the word out. What started as one small restaurant, Kayla's Table, quickly became a big success. A year later, I opened a second location. For years after that, I opened a third. Kayla Harrison, the girl once pushed aside by her own family, was now the owner of a growing restaurant chain. And I was just getting started. 4 years later, I was sitting in my office at my third Kayla's Table location, going through some financial papers, when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't know. I waited a second, then picked up. Kayla? The voice on the line sent a chill down my spine. It had been 4 years since I heard it. No calls, no messages. Nothing. And now, out of nowhere, she was reaching out. It was my mother. What do you want? I asked, keeping my voice calm and flat. She sighed like something heavy was weighing on her. It's Lori, she said. She's in trouble. She lost her job, got caught stealing. No one will hire her. She's drowning in debt. And the family is struggling. We need your help. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, trying to push down the anger building inside me. And now you thought of me? I said. You kicked me out, remember? I left. We don't have anything to do with each other anymore. She's still your sister, my mom said softly, trying to sound caring. Yes, she made mistakes. But she needs a chance to fix them. Please, can't you help? I didn't speak right away.
Part of me wanted to hang up.
But another part, the small, foolish part, remembered the little girl Lori used to be before she turned selfish and cruel. I sighed. I can hire her, but she doesn't get special treatment. If she wants to work, she follows the rules like everyone else. Thank you, Kayla. I knew you had a good heart, she said. I gave a dry laugh. Now they needed me, the same girl they once threw away. Lori started working at one of my restaurants as an HR manager. At first, she seemed very different. She arrived early, helped others, even worked extra hours. I started to think maybe she had truly changed. But then, I began hearing whispers. Some of my staff came to me, looking uncomfortable. Kayla, we've been hearing things, they said. It turned out Lori was quietly turning people against me. She told them I wasn't paying them fairly, that I was keeping all the money for myself. She even said the business should have been hers because I had stolen everything from the family. At first, I didn't want to believe it. But then I started noticing a change. Some employees became quiet around me. Others avoided eye contact. People didn't seem as motivated as before. One day, my head chef, Wayne, pulled me aside. His voice was low and serious. Kayla, you need to know something, he said. Lori is causing problems. She's telling the staff that if they go on strike, you'll be forced to raise their pay or shut the restaurant down. A slow anger began to grow inside me. I had given Lori a chance. I let her back into my life. And she had betrayed me. But I wasn't the same Kayla anymore. She was about to find out who I had become. I clenched my fists.
Don't worry, Wayne.
I know what to do. At first, I thought Lori just wanted to hurt my reputation. But then something worse happened. One night, Juliana, my financial manager, walked into my office. Her face was pale. Kayla, we have a problem, she said. I looked up from the papers. What is it? We're missing $10,000 from this month. The cash is gone. There's no record of it being taken out of the safe. My heart dropped. Does anyone else know? I asked. Juliana shook her head. I only found out after checking everything again. But Kayla, only a few people have access to that safe. You, me, Wayne, and... She didn't say the name. But I already knew. Lori. I didn't want to believe it without proof. But I couldn't let this go on. If someone was stealing from me and from my staff, they had to be held responsible. So I quietly installed hidden security cameras near the safe and in the accounting office. 5 days later, late at night, while I was reviewing reports, I got an alert. Unusual activity detected in the accounting office. I clicked on the live camera feed. And there she was.
Lori.
She slipped into the office, looked around to see if anyone was watching, then opened the safe. Her hands moved quickly, stuffing stacks of cash into her purse. I held my breath. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But it was clear. I had given her a second chance, and she had betrayed me again. The next morning, I called the police. When they showed up at the restaurant and asked for Lori, she panicked.
What?
What are you doing? I didn't do anything. I stood there, arms crossed, my voice calm and steady. I have proof, I said. The cameras caught everything. Lori's face turned pale. You wouldn't do this to me, would you? I looked her straight in the eyes. I will. The police handcuffed her right there in the restaurant, in front of staff and customers. Less than an hour later, my parents rushed into the restaurant, both of them furious. Kayla, what do you think you're doing? My father shouted. You called the police on your own sister? My mother stood beside him, crying. She just made a mistake. Did you really have to be this cruel to your own sister? I let out a dry laugh. A mistake? The real mistake was trusting any of you again.
My father pointed at me.
You'll regret this. If you don't drop the charges right now, you are no longer our daughter. For the first time in my life, those words didn't hurt. They set me free. I crossed my arms and said calmly, "Fine. Just pretend I never existed, like you did the day I walked out." They kept yelling. My mother cried. My father threatened to sue me, but I felt nothing. I just looked at them without emotion. In time, they stormed out, carrying the same hate they always had. But I didn't feel pain. I felt peace. This time, the door I once left open for them was closed forever. On the day of the trial, I arrived early, not because I wanted to be there, but because I wanted to see if Lori would still lie to my face. She walked into the courtroom looking perfect. Her hair was done, her clothes neat, her expression soft, like she was the real victim. When she took the stand, she sighed and shook her head like she was full of regret. "I never meant to steal from my sister," she said, her voice shaking like she was about to cry. I just borrowed the money. I planned to return it. But before I could, she called the police. I never thought she'd do this to her own family. I clenched my fists but stayed quiet. I had waited for this moment. Then the prosecutor stood up. "Miss Harrison, are you aware this isn't the first time you've been accused of stealing?" Lori's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about." The courtroom doors opened, and a man walked in. I knew him right away. It was Lori's old boss. He stood in front of the jury and told them everything she had done at his company. The man explained how Lori had stolen money from his company. And when she was caught, she made up a lie and accused him of something terrible, sexual harassment, just to avoid punishment. The courtroom filled with gasps. Lori's eyes went wide. For the first time, she had no excuse, no lie to hide behind. Then the prosecutor played an audio recording. It was former employees confirming that Lori had made up the story to protect herself. When the judge gave the final decision, Lori was found guilty of theft and fraud. I watched as the officers put handcuffs on her again. She started crying, begging, pleading, but no one listened. Then she looked straight at me, her eyes full of hate. "You'll regret this, Kayla," she hissed. "You stole my life." I looked her in the eyes one last time.
"No, Lori.
You ruined your own life." After that day, I never spoke to my family again. They called me a few times, to blame me, to beg for help, but I never answered. I had cut all ties.
They were no longer part of my life."
I focused on my work and growing my restaurant. For years later, Kayla's Table had 6 locations across the state. It became a well-known name in the food world. But more important than success, I wasn't alone anymore. Wayne, Juliana, and my loyal team weren't just coworkers. They were my real family. A family built on respect, trust, and love, not blood. I used to be Kayla, the forgotten girl. The one no one saw or cared about. The outcast. But now, I was Kayla Harrison, the woman who built her own future and wouldn't let anyone take it away. Kayla's story isn't just about her. It's a story many people can relate to. Some are hurt or used by their own families, but they rise anyway. This story is a reminder. Family isn't always a place of love and safety. And sometimes, cutting ties with toxic people is the only way to find your true worth. Success doesn't come from luck. It comes from hard work, strength, and believing in yourself. Kayla's life proves one thing: your past doesn't decide your future, you do. What do you think of Kayla's story? Have you ever gone through something like this, or known someone who had to fight for their worth? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow this channel for more powerful real-life stories about family and life.